The place cards were cream, folded into little tents, each name written in Tessa's careful blue script. Elaine, Richard, Neil, Adrienne, June, Martin. Even Graham's coworker Evan, whom I had met once in a grocery store parking lot, had a place at the table. I did not. I checked twice because a missing piece of cardstock seemed more likely than what the room was telling me. 12 chairs hugged the long table. 12 cards. In the kitchen, beside the sink and a stack of dirty mixing bowls, someone had set a 13th plate at the counter. "Where am I sitting?" I asked. Graham was opening a bottle of wine. He glanced toward the counter, then smiled at me as if I had walked into the middle of a joke. "The cook doesn't need a place card." Nobody laughed. My sister June became very interested in straightening her napkin. I looked at my daughter. Tessa's hand froze around a water glass, and for 1 second I saw that she understood exactly what had happened. Then she said, "Mom, please, it's just dinner. Don't make this awkward." 36 hours earlier, that same daughter had called me from the supermarket to ask if 2 kinds of potatoes were enough. "I already bought 10 pounds of Yukon Golds," I said, wedging the phone between my shoulder and ear while I searched my own pantry for poultry seasoning. "How many forms of potato do 12 adults require? Graham thinks mashed potatoes and roasted potatoes are redundant. Graham thinks mayonnaise is a seasoning. He's standing right here." Then I'm glad I didn't say anything mean. I heard him laugh in the background. Graham had a good laugh, warm and surprised, as though you were always funnier than he expected you to be. It was one of the things I had liked about him when Tessa first brought him home 11 years earlier. He could make you feel charming merely by enjoying you. "We'll do mashed," Tessa said. But Elaine mentioned sweet potatoes. "Then Elaine can bring sweet potatoes." A pause. "Tessa," she offered. "Tessa, I told her you already had a recipe." Of course she had. I found the poultry seasoning behind a jar of cinnamon and wrote sweet potatoes on the list taped to my refrigerator. The paper was already so crowded I had begun writing sideways in the margins. "I'll pick 'em up," I said. "You're the best." That was Tessa's favorite thing to call me when I saved her from a problem she had volunteered me to solve. I drove to her house the following morning with my trunk packed so tightly that the grocery bags braced the roasting pan upright. My overnight case rode in the passenger seat. On the floor beneath it was the green folder where I kept Thanksgiving recipes, although I knew almost all of them by heart. Tessa and Graham lived 25 minutes away in a brick house with black shutters and a front door Graham had painted the color of a ripe persimmon. He called it burnt orange. I called it a cry for help. When I pulled into the driveway, he was standing on a ladder fastening a wreath above the garage. "Look who's here," he called. "Our secret weapon. I'm not climbing that ladder." I was thinking more along the lines of turkey. He climbed down and kissed my cheek before reaching for the roasting pan. Graham was 42, broad-shouldered, and prematurely silver at the temples, in a way that made strangers trust him. He wore a cream sweater with the sleeves pushed up, though it was too warm for a sweater. Graham dressed for the picture he wanted the day to become. "Careful," I said. "That was my mother's." "I know. Sacred vessel." He held it high with both hands like an offering and carried it inside. Tessa came hurrying from the dining room with a measuring tape clipped to her waistband. She was 39 and still had the same determined walk she'd had at 14, when every trip down a hallway looked like she was going to confront a principal. "You made it." She wrapped both arms around me and held on long enough that I stopped thinking about lists. "I've missed you. You saw me Sunday. I missed you since Sunday." That was Tessa, too. She could make me feel loved with an intensity that seemed to erase every small hurt right up until the next one. The dining room had changed since my last visit. The wallpaper was gone, replaced by deep green paint. A brass light fixture hung over a long walnut table Graham had spent months hunting for online. The room looked beautiful and a little severe, like nobody should enter carrying a mug. "Wow," I said. Tessa searched my face. "Do you like it?" "I do." You hesitated. I was admiring. You hesitate when you're lying, I also hesitate when I'm old enough to understand the danger of speaking too fast. Graham returned without the roasting pan. She hates the light fixture. I did not say that. She told me it looked like an octopus when I sent her the picture. It had more arms in the picture. Tessa laughed, and for a moment we were easy together. Then Graham tapped the measuring tape at her waist. "Did you check the spacing with the leaves in?" Her smile faded by a degree. I was about to. "We need to know before Neil brings the extra chairs." "I know. I'm just saying. 12 is going to be tight. We've discussed it." He lifted both hands. "Not criticizing. I'm helping." Tessa glanced at me, embarrassed by something too small to name. I busied myself removing my coat. The refrigerator was already full of sparkling water, wine, and small glass jars containing olives that cost more than a chicken. I shifted things until I had room for the turkey. Graham followed me into the kitchen and moved 2 jars back after I set them on the wrong shelf. "Elaine likes those chilled," he said. "They're in the refrigerator. The door runs warmer. I'll alert the authorities." He laughed again, but he put the olives on the middle shelf. Tessa appeared carrying 3 decorative pillows. "Mom, your room is almost ready." Her office was at the back of the house, a narrow space with built-in shelves and a pull-out sofa. Almost ready meant the printer had been moved to the floor and a stack of shipping boxes now formed a waist-high tower beside the desk. "You don't have to stay," she said quickly. "I just thought it would be easier than driving back tonight and coming again at dawn. It's fine. The mattress is better than it looks. That is exactly what people say about good mattresses." She smiled without much conviction. "I'll find another blanket." My house had 3 empty bedrooms, but staying over had been Tessa's idea. She said it would feel festive, like the Thanksgivings when she was younger and we all woke up under the same roof. I had agreed before remembering that, back then, I owned the roof. My husband, Frank, used to wander into our kitchen on Thanksgiving morning wearing plaid pajama pants and asking what he could do. I would give him parsley to chop because it kept him occupied without putting anything important at risk. He had been gone 3 years, but every November I still bought parsley before I remembered there was nobody to hand it to. By 11, I had cranberry sauce cooling, cornbread drying for stuffing, and a sweet potato casserole underway. Tessa stood beside me peeling apples until Graham called from the dining room. "Can I borrow you?" "She's using a knife," I said. "Bring her back with all her fingers." He wanted her opinion on napkins. 10 minutes later, he needed help deciding whether the candles were too tall. Then there was a discussion about where to put a sideboard that had apparently been in the correct place until that morning. Each time Tessa came back to the kitchen, she washed her hands, picked up the peeler, and apologized. "You don't have to apologize," I told her after the 4th interruption. "I know. I just feel bad leaving you." "Then don't." She looked toward the dining room. I handed her an apple. That wasn't a riddle. I'm trying to keep everybody happy. There were only 3 of us in the house, and I wondered which one of us counted as everybody. She peeled half the apple before Graham called again. At lunch, we ate turkey sandwiches standing at the kitchen island. Graham talked about how surprised everyone would be when they saw the dining room. "Mom's already surprised," Tessa said. "I'm mostly surprised you're letting people chew in there." He pointed his sandwich at me. "That's why we have you. You bring warmth." It sounded like a compliment. Graham was gifted that way. His phone buzzed. He read the message and frowned, then typed something with both thumbs. "What?" Tessa asked. Evan's plans fell apart. "You're Evan?" He and Lydia were supposed to go to her sister's. Big blow-up, apparently. Tessa put down her sandwich. "That's too bad. I told them to come here." She stared at him. "You what?" "It's 2 people, Tess. We already have 10, so now we have 12. The table seats, 12. With the extra chairs. That's what the extra chairs are for." Tessa's eyes moved toward me and away again. "You could have asked. I knew you'd say yes. That isn't the same as asking." Graham leaned over and kissed her temple. She held herself still for the kiss, then softened despite herself. "It's Thanksgiving," he said. "We're not leaving people stranded." "No," she said. "Of course not." He took a sandwich and went upstairs to answer a call. Tessa remained at the island, rubbing one thumb over a scratch in the marble. "I'm sorry," she said. "For what?" She looked up too quickly. "For adding people to your workload? I'll stretch the stuffing. I knew you would." That answer sat between us longer than she seemed to realize. Late that afternoon, while I rolled pie dough, Tessa began making the place cards. She had bought thick cream paper and a blue pen with a special angled tip. She practiced each name on scrap paper before writing it for real. "You always had such pretty handwriting," I said. "You taught me. I tried. You cried every time I made you redo a lowercase g. I did not cry. You declared that cursive was emotional abuse." She laughed. Maybe it was. The finished cards formed neat rows near my elbow. I read the names while pretending not to. Elaine and Richard, Graham's brother Neil and his wife Adrian, June and Martin, my niece Dana and her husband Rob, Evan and Lydia. Tessa and Graham did not need cards, apparently. That made 12 with the hosts. I dusted flour from my hands. "Where are you putting me?" She kept writing, although there were no names left. "We'll squeeze. Graham just said the table seats 12. He gets dramatic about spacing. He was measuring it before I took my coat off." "Mom." She set down the pen. "It's going to be fine." I looked at the 12 cream cards and believed her because she was my daughter and because believing her was still the easiest thing I knew how to do. Tessa slid the finished cards into a shallow wooden bowl, then carried them into the dining room before Graham could see how much room they had taken up on the island. I went back to my pie dough. "What kind is that?" she asked from the doorway. "Apple. I thought you were making pecan." "I am." "And pumpkin?" "Yes." She smiled carefully. "Graham's dad really likes chocolate cream. Graham's dad is welcome to bring one. He's bringing wine." "Of course he is." I chilled the dough and made the chocolate cream pie. By 7, the kitchen counters had disappeared beneath covered dishes. Graham ordered pizza for dinner because he said we shouldn't create more work for me. I appreciated the thought until he handed me the empty boxes and asked if I knew which recycling bin they went in. Tessa and I cleaned while he moved the dining chairs for the 3rd time. We could hear their legs scraping across the floor. "He's nervous," she said. I didn't say anything. "You get a certain look." "I'm washing a bowl. You're washing it critically." I handed her the towel. "Then you dry it supportively." She smiled, but her attention shifted when another chair scraped. "He wants it to be nice," she said. "It will be nice." His mother notices everything. So does mine. And she's been dead 22 years. I still hear her when I use too much salt. You know what I mean. I did. Elaine could praise a room in a way that made you notice the one thing she had not praised. She was never openly rude. She simply had an instinct for locating whatever made a person uncertain and resting her eyes there. I touched Tessa's wrist with my wet hand. "The room is beautiful. The food will be good. Elaine will survive any flaws she discovers." She still tells people about the first turkey I made. That turkey was raw, not all of it. The outside was delicious. Tessa laughed, then leaned her shoulder against mine. "I'm glad you're here. That should have been enough to quiet every small concern I had. For a while, it was. The pull-out mattress was not better than it looked. A metal bar ran across my back like a border checkpoint. Around midnight, I gave up, wrapped myself in the extra blanket Tessa had found, and sat at her desk watching rain thread down the window. On the lowest shelf was a framed photograph from Tessa and Graham's wedding. Frank stood beside me in a navy suit, his tie already crooked even though the ceremony had not started. He had one arm around my waist and the other around Tessa. Graham was on her opposite side, leaning in as if he had always belonged there. Frank had liked him, not blindly but genuinely. "He's a little full of himself," I'd said after meeting Graham the 3rd or 4th time. Frank had shrugged. "Plenty of room in there. Maybe the rest of us can move in." At 2 a.m, I heard Tessa and Graham talking in their bedroom above me. Not arguing exactly. Their voices had the flat, careful sound of two people trying not to argue. I caught the words chairs and ridiculous. Then Graham said something I couldn't make out, and the floor went quiet. I returned the wedding photograph to the shelf faced slightly more toward the room. Tessa was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs at 5:30. She wore gray sweatpants, thick socks, and one of Frank's old college sweatshirts. Seeing it caught me off guard. "I stole this years ago," she said, pulling at the cuff. "I know. Your father complained every winter. He knew I had it. He knew everything you stole. He just liked having material." She poured coffee into the mug she kept for me, yellow with tiny white flowers. On the counter between us sat a paper bag from the bakery. "I got your favorite Danish." "When did you go out?" 5. Tessa. I couldn't sleep. She said it lightly, but the skin beneath her eyes looked bruised. We stood at the island eating pastries before the day could get loud. Without makeup, without Graham calling from the next room, she looked younger and more familiar. She tore her Danish into pieces and ate only the corners. "You okay?" I asked. "Just nervous." "About the meal?" "About everything." I waited. She wiped sugar from her thumb. "Graham says I act like I'm waiting to be graded whenever his parents come over. He may be right. That was fast. I'm your mother. I've seen you study for dinner." She rolled her eyes, but she smiled. "Elaine doesn't get to grade you," I said. "And if she tries, remember that she once served me asparagus in December and called it seasonal. That's your evidence?" It was woody. I feel better already. She reached across the island and squeezed my hand. Then footsteps sounded overhead, and she released me to start the oven. The kitchen warmed quickly. By 8, the windows had fogged. Tessa chopped celery while I seasoned the turkey. Graham came down showered and dressed in dark trousers and a white shirt, as if the guests might arrive at breakfast. He stopped behind Tessa and kissed the top of her head. "Smells incredible. Mom's been up for hours. Our hero." He stole a piece of celery from the cutting board. "Do we have anything people can snack on when they get here?" "There's a cheese board in the refrigerator," Tessa said. "Perfect." "I made it last night. I said perfect." He ate another piece of celery and walked out. Tessa brought the knife down harder than necessary. "Poor celery," I said. She glanced at me, then laughed despite herself. The morning became a series of timers. Turkey in, pie crust out, onions softened, broth warmed. Every surface acquired a spoon, and every spoon somehow found its way into the sink. Graham appeared whenever something smelled finished. He tasted the cranberry sauce, pronounced it restaurant level, and put the spoon back on the clean counter. He took a photograph of the pies. He asked whether the stuffing could be called dressing on the printed menu he had apparently decided to make. "What printed menu?" Tessa asked. "Just a small thing for the sideboard. We don't need a menu. It adds something. It adds paper." He looked at me. "Marion, settle this. I'm staying out of marital combat before noon." "It isn't combat," he said. Tessa and I both looked at him. "Fine," he said, "no menu." He left, mildly wounded, and Tessa whispered, "Thank you. I didn't do anything." "Exactly." At 1, I went upstairs to change. I had brought a rust-colored blouse that Frank once said made my eyes look green, though my eyes were brown and he had known that perfectly well. I buttoned it, brushed flour from my black pants, and put on lipstick. When I returned, Graham was standing at the bottom of the stairs. "Great timing," he said. "We've got a gravy concern." The concern was that there was no gravy yet. I tied my apron over the blouse. The first guests arrived at 2:30. Elaine entered carrying a white orchid in a ceramic pot. Richard followed with 4 bottles of wine and the resigned expression of a man who had learned that his main holiday function was transportation. Elaine kissed my cheek and looked toward the stove. "It smells marvelous, Marion. I don't know how you do all this. One panic at a time. You're in your element." She said it warmly. Still, I became aware that she wore silk and I wore an apron. Neil and Adrienne arrived next, then June and Martin. My niece Dana came in carrying a bowl of roasted carrots, despite Tessa having told everyone not to bring food. I could have kissed her. "I figured another vegetable couldn't hurt," Dana said. "Put it near the butter. Graham won't notice it there." June found me checking the turkey and pressed a cold glass of white wine into my hand. Drink. I'm using a thermometer. You're experienced enough to do both. She glanced around the kitchen. What can I do? Before I could answer, Tessa came through carrying the orchid. Mom, do you have a vase or something? This pot is dripping. It's a potted plant. I know, but Graham wants it on the sideboard and it's leaving a ring. June took the orchid. I'll handle the botanical emergency. She gave me a look as she passed, but I was already reaching for the oven mitts. Evan and Lydia arrived 15 minutes late and apologetic. I had met Evan once, but I had never met his wife. Lydia was soft-spoken and wore a red scarf she did not remove, even in the warm house. Both of them thanked Tessa repeatedly for taking them in. Please, Graham said, taking their coats. That's what Thanksgiving is about. From the kitchen, I basted the turkey. By 4, everyone had a drink except me. My wine sat untouched near the toaster. Conversation swelled in the next room, punctuated by Graham's laugh. Every few minutes, someone wandered into the kitchen to praise the smell, ask when we were eating, or lift the foil from something. Tessa moved between the kitchen and dining room with a fixed brightness. She had changed into a dark blue dress and pinned up her hair. Each time she passed me, she gave me a new task disguised as information. Elaine likes her gravy really hot. Richard asked if there are nuts in the stuffing. Graham thinks we should serve the cranberry sauce in the small crystal bowl. At 4:30, I untied my apron. Where are you going? She asked. To wash my face. The rolls need to go in. You know how to put rolls in the oven. I'm doing the water glasses. The glasses will remain thirsty for 8 minutes. She stared at me. I tied the apron again and put in the rolls. Dinner was called at 5:12. Everyone drifted toward the dining room while I transferred the gravy into the small crystal bowl. Tessa carried in the turkey. Graham stood at the head of the table directing people with one hand and holding a wine bottle in the other. I followed with the gravy and saw the place settings. The 12 cream cards had been arranged with exact care. At the kitchen counter, a single plate waited beside the used mixing bowls. It had a fork, a folded paper napkin, and no glass. I set down the gravy. Where am I sitting? Graham gave me that easy smile. The cook doesn't need a place card. The room tightened. June's fingers stopped on the back of her chair. Dana looked at Tessa. I looked at her too. Mom, please, Tessa said. It's just dinner. Don't make this awkward. Is the counter where you meant for me to eat? We can talk about this later. That wasn't my question. Graham lowered the bottle. Marion, come on, it was a joke. Where's the chair? He glanced around as if one might appear. Tessa took a step toward me. We're already behind. Can we please sit down? I untied my apron. My hands were steady, which surprised me. I folded it once and placed it on the counter beside the plate. Mom, Tessa whispered, I asked you before you wrote the cards. Her face changed. Not much, but enough. Behind her, the candles burned in a straight line. The turkey shone beneath the chandelier. Everything looked exactly as she and Graham had wanted it to look. I washed my hands, dried them on the towel by the sink, and picked up my purse from the office. Nobody followed me to the door. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the driveway glittered under the porch light. I sat in my car with the key in my hand, waiting for Tessa to come running out. The front door never opened. My phone began ringing before I reached the end of the street. I turned it face down and drove home. My house was cold when I walked in because I had turned the heat down before leaving. I stood in the dark entryway with my coat still buttoned and listened to the furnace wake beneath the floor. The silence felt personal. My phone had rung 4 times during the drive. 3 calls from Tessa, 1 from June. While I was hanging up my coat, it rang again. Tessa. I let it stop. The rust-colored blouse suddenly felt ridiculous, too dressy for an empty house. I went upstairs, removed it carefully, and hung it back in the closet. Lipstick still stained the rim of my mouth. I wiped it off with cold cream until my face looked pale and unfinished. In the kitchen, I opened the refrigerator. Mustard, eggs, half a lemon. a carton of milk that needed smelling before use. Everything worth eating was 25 minutes away, arranged on platters I had washed by hand. I found a sleeve of crackers in the pantry and ate 6 over the sink. The 7th broke when I tried to spread cheese on it and scattered crumbs across the counter. That did it. Not the missing chair, not Graham's joke or Tessa's face when I asked if she had meant for me to eat in the kitchen. A broken cracker undid me. I covered my mouth with one hand and cried without making much sound. Frank would have known what to say. He would have said something inappropriate first, just to get it out of his system. Then he would have put his arms around me and waited until I found the words myself. I could almost hear him asking why I had left the turkey. Because it wasn't mine, I thought. That answer made me cry harder. My phone buzzed against the counter. This time it was a text from June. "Please tell me you got home safe." I typed, "Home safe." 3 dots appeared immediately. "Can I call?" "Not tonight. I'm sorry." I looked at those 2 words for a long time. I did not know whether she was sorry for me, sorry about what happened, or sorry she had remained beside her chair while I walked out. I turned off the phone. The old clock in the living room chimed 6. Dinner would be underway. Graham would have carved the turkey with the knife he sharpened every Thanksgiving but never used to prepare anything. Elaine would have complimented the gravy. Richard would have poured more wine than anyone wanted. Tessa would be smiling too brightly, explaining my absence without saying anything true. I pictured someone carrying my plate from the counter and placing it in the refrigerator. Then I pictured nobody bothering. I made tea and left it untouched on the side table. At some point, I fell asleep on the couch with the television playing a home renovation show at low volume. I woke just after midnight to cheerful strangers admiring a kitchen nobody had cooked in. When I turned my phone back on the next morning, the messages arrived all at once. June had called twice. Dana had sent, "I'm really sorry, Aunt Marion. Please call if you need me." There was nothing from Elaine, Richard, Neil, Adrian, Evan, or Lydia. That was fair. Most of them barely knew what they had witnessed. People rarely volunteer for the middle of a family argument, especially after they have eaten the evidence. Graham had texted at 10:14. "Sorry the seating joke landed wrong. You know how much we appreciate you. Hope we can move past this." He had included a red heart. I read it twice and set the phone down. Tessa had left 3 voicemails. In the first, recorded 2 minutes after I drove away, she sounded worried. "Mom, where are you? Are you seriously leaving? Please call me." In the second, her voice was lower. "I don't understand why you couldn't just talk to me privately. Everybody is sitting here feeling horrible. You made it seem like we planned some kind of attack on you." In the last, recorded at 9:30, she was crying. "I needed you tonight and you left me. I hope you understand that." I sat at the kitchen table in my robe staring at Frank's empty chair. There were a dozen answers I could have given. I needed you too. You left me first. I was 20 feet away and you still chose the room. Instead, I poured another cup of coffee. At 9, a car door slammed outside. I knew the rhythm of Tessa's knock. 3 quick taps, pause, then 2 more, as well as I knew her voice. I considered not answering. The second set of knocks came harder. "Mom, I can see your kitchen light." I opened the door. Tessa stood on the porch wearing yesterday's blue dress under Graham's raincoat. Her hair had loosened from its pins, and the makeup beneath her eyes had smudged gray. She held my overnight case in one hand and my green recipe folder in the other. "You left these?" "I know. Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She carried my things to the living room and set them beside the couch. The folder slipped, and several recipe cards slid onto the rug. Tessa crouched to gather them. "Your stuffing recipe has gravy on it," she said. "That card is older than you. I think some of the gravy is older than me." Normally, I would have laughed. She expected me to. When I didn't, she placed the cards back in the folder and stood. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Do you want coffee?" I asked. Her face tightened. "No." "Then sit down." "I don't want to sit down." "All right." She folded her arms inside the raincoat. Do you have any idea what last night was like? Yes. No, you don't. Everyone just sat there after you left. Aunt June wanted to go after you, and Graham said you probably needed time to cool off. Dana kept asking if we should wait. Elaine looked like she wanted to disappear. Did you wait? Tessa blinked. For dinner, I said. Did you wait? The food was getting cold. Of course. What were we supposed to do? Throw it away? No. Then why are you saying it like that? I walked into the kitchen. Tessa followed, the belt of Graham's coat dragging behind her. I picked up my coffee and leaned against the counter. You came here to tell me I embarrassed you. You did embarrass me. At least we know why you're here. Mom, you walked out in front of everybody. And before I did that, he made a stupid joke. There was a plate at the counter. We were crowded. There were 12 chairs and 13 people. We would have figured it out. You had figured it out. Her eyes moved toward the window. I waited. She pulled the raincoat tighter. I knew seating was tight. That isn't what I said. What do you want me to say? Yes, there weren't enough chairs. Evan and Lydia were added late. Graham thought you'd be in and out of the kitchen anyway, and I didn't think, no, you thought. Her chin lifted. Fine. I thought you wouldn't care. Why? Because it's one meal. Because you're not formal. Because you always complain about place cards and assigned seating. I complain about decorative paper. I've never said I like being told I don't belong at the table. Nobody said you didn't belong. Graham did. It was a joke. Where was my chair, Tessa? She opened her mouth, then looked away again. That was the whole thing. She could defend his words. She could explain his mood, his nerves, the crowded table, the late invitation, the temperature of the food. She could not produce a chair. It would have taken 2 minutes to bring one from the office, I said. We could have squeezed. Somebody could have sat at the corner. We've put 13 people around smaller tables than that. I know. You didn't even try. I was hosting 12 people. So was I. You were cooking. The sentence slipped out before she could stop it. We both heard it. Tessa's face crumpled slightly, but she recovered. That isn't what I meant. I think it is. You're twisting everything. I don't have to twist it. You divided the room yourself. She walked to the sink, then turned back. I told you I was nervous. I told you I needed the night to go well. You knew how important it was to me. I did everything you asked, and then left at the worst possible moment. You asked me to cook dinner. I cooked it. You asked me to make 4 pies. I made 4 pies. You asked me to sleep on a metal bar so I could start before sunrise. I did that too. The only thing I asked was where I would sit. I didn't ask you to sleep on a metal bar. Now we've found the important detail. She pressed her lips together. Anger brought color into her cheeks. Graham says you were trying to punish him. This isn't about what Graham says. It's always about Graham with you. No, it has been about making things easy for you. You've never liked him. That's not true. You make little comments constantly. His clothes, the house, the way he plans things. I tease him. He teases me. And apparently, only one of you is allowed to. I set down my cup. I'm not debating whether his joke was funny. The counter was not a joke. Tessa stared at me. I am your mother, I said. I will not work in your house and then be put aside when the work is done. I won't cook for gatherings where I'm treated like hired help. I won't clean up after people who don't think I need a chair. That is over. Her expression went still. What does that mean? It means exactly what I said. You're never coming to my house again? I didn't say that. You're not cooking for us anymore? Not like this. What does like this mean? It means I'm not arriving early to do everything while you and Graham host. I'm not accepting invitations that are actually assignments. If you invite me to dinner, I come as your mother. If you need help, you ask, and I decide whether I can give it. She gave a short, disbelieving laugh. So now I have to submit a request? You have always known how to ask other people. You only stopped asking me. That's ridiculous. Is it? Yes, we're family. Family should make asking easier, not unnecessary. She paced to the doorway and back. All this over a place card. It wasn't the card. Then what was it? You. The word landed harder than I intended, but I did not take it back. Tessa's eyes filled. I didn't say what he said. You told me not to make it awkward. Because I was trying to stop a scene. There was already a scene. You just wanted me to be the only person who felt it. She wiped beneath one eye with the heel of her hand. I can't do this, she said. You came here. I came because I thought we could fix it. No. You came because you thought I would apologize and put everything back. She shook her head, but not convincingly. At the front door, she stopped with her hand on the knob. Dad would have come back inside. It was a cruel thing to say, and she knew it before she finished. I felt the pain of it move through me, clean and cold. Your father would have brought me a chair. Tessa left without another word. I stood in the hallway until her car pulled away. Then I noticed she had left the green recipe folder on the rug. My phone rang a few minutes later. For one foolish second, I hoped she had turned around. It was June. Well, she said when I answered, that was the worst Thanksgiving since Martin tried deep frying a frozen turkey. I'm not ready to laugh. I know. In the silence that followed, I heard her take a breath. I should have said something last night, she said. I kept thinking Tessa would handle it, so did I. I'm sorry. This time I knew what she meant. Then she added, but you two can't let one ugly night destroy the family. The apology had lasted 9 seconds. I looked at the recipe folder on the rug, its stained cards fanned against the cover. Interesting, I said. You called me. What does that mean? It means everybody seems very worried about what I'm going to destroy. Nobody is calling the people who set the table. June was quiet for a moment. I did call Tessa, she said. And? She cried. That doesn't answer my question. I told her what Graham said was ugly. I told her she should have made room for you. Good. She's ashamed, Marion. She should be. That isn't like you. What isn't? Wanting her to feel bad. I walked into the living room and picked up the green folder. A card for dinner rolls had worked itself loose. Frank's handwriting filled the back, a list of people he had once invited after I told him our table was full. I don't want her to feel bad, I said. I want her to understand why she does. Maybe she does. She was just here. Oh. She came to explain how I ruined dinner. June made a small noise. She knew Tessa well enough to believe me and loved her enough to wish she didn't. What did you say? That I'm done being treated like staff. You're not staff. Apparently I'm management. I get blamed when operations fail. That almost made her laugh. She stopped herself. Martin says everybody was uncomfortable after you left. I'm sure they were. Dana barely ate. Dana had 2 pieces of pie. How do you know? She always has 2 pieces of pie. June sighed. See, this is what I mean. You know everybody. You take care of everybody. We need you. There it was, wrapped more gently but carrying the same message. I have to go, I said. Don't hang up mad. I'm not mad. You sound mad. I'm tired, June. All right. But call me later. I will. I did not. Saturday morning, I stripped the pull-out sheets from my overnight case and washed them, even though I had slept on them for only one night. They smelled faintly of Tessa's laundry detergent, something floral and expensive. I folded them, put them in the linen closet, then stood there, wondering why I had brought my own sheets to a house with 4 sets already stacked on the shelf. At noon, Graham came to my door. He had my roasting pan tucked beneath one arm and a white bakery box balanced on top of it. My apron lay folded inside the clean pan. I opened the storm door, but not the main one. Peace offering, he said, lifting the box. What is it? Chocolate cream pie. I made you one 2 days ago. This one has apology in it. Does apology contain dairy? His smile appeared automatically, then faltered when mine didn't. Can I come in? I stepped back. Graham carried everything into the kitchen and set the roasting pan on the stove. Whoever had washed it had left a patch of brown drippings in one corner. My mother would have attacked it with baking soda. I decided it could stay there until I felt like caring. He placed the bakery box on the counter and looked around. Your house always smells the same. What does it smell like? Coffee, cinnamon, I don't know, home. It was a good answer. Graham was good at answers. Where's Tessa? At home. Why are you here? To apologize. He put his hands into the pockets of his jacket. Without a roomful of people around him, he looked tired. His silver hair had not been combed into its usual careful sweep. I made a dumb joke, he said. It landed badly. That's what you texted. I mean it. What do you mean? That I'm sorry you were hurt? No. What did the joke mean? He shifted his weight. It didn't mean anything. Then why did you say it? Because you were cooking. Because there wasn't a card. It was wordplay. Not good wordplay. No argument there. Where did you expect me to sit? His eyes flicked toward the pie box. The counter was only supposed to be temporary. Tessa didn't say that. She was upset. She said you thought I would be going in and out of the kitchen. Well, you usually do. During dinner, you like making sure everybody has what they need. I waited. He took one hand out of his pocket and rubbed the back of his neck. Look, Evan and Lydia got at it at the last minute. Tess said you wouldn't care about assigned seating. I assumed we'd work it out. Tessa said it was your idea. What was my idea? The counter. His eyebrows rose, only slightly. I said it was an option. For whom? Marion. For whom besides me? He breathed out through his nose. You're making this sound like we held a meeting to exile you. I'm asking who else you considered putting there. There wasn't anyone else who would be comfortable in the kitchen. Why would I be comfortable there? Because you were already in there. The simplicity of his answer chilled me more than the joke had. He wasn't trying to be cruel. In his mind, rooms belonged to the people who occupied them most usefully. He belonged at the head of the table. Tessa belonged beside him. I belonged near the stove. Would you have seated your mother at the counter? My mother wasn't cooking. He heard it as he said it. For one hopeful second, I thought he might finally understand. Instead, he frowned at me. That came out wrong. It came out honest. Okay, fine. I can see why you took it personally. It was personal. You were talking to me. I mean, more personally than I intended. Intent seems to be doing a lot of work in this family. He pulled out a kitchen chair and sat. He had come expecting a short conversation. I could see him adjusting to the possibility that charm might not shorten it. Tessa is devastated, he said. So she told me. She thinks you're cutting her off. I'm not. That's what it feels like. Feelings aren't always intentions, Graham. He gave me a look. Point made. It wasn't a point. You keep telling me what you meant as though that should decide what happened. I'm telling you what I mean now. I'm not cutting her off. I'm no longer doing all the things that made it easy to treat me as an extra person. Nobody treats you like an extra person. You invited 2 people without asking your wife and solved the problem by removing me from the table. We didn't remove you. You never put me there. He leaned back, jaw tightening. I came here to apologize. You came here to have your apology accepted. What's the difference? One is about what you did. The other is about getting me to stop reacting. You walked out of our house on Thanksgiving, yes, after we spent all week preparing. I stared at him. He caught himself. You know what I mean. I spent all week preparing. So did Tessa. I was there. She was under a lot of pressure. From whom? He looked toward the window. I thought about Tessa in Frank's sweatshirt, tearing the corners from her Danish. I thought about the way she became brighter and faster whenever Graham entered a room, as if his comfort were a test she had agreed to take every day. I'm not going to discuss your marriage with you, I said. I'm not asking you to. You are when you ask me to make Tessa feel better about something the 2 of you did. I'm asking you to call your daughter. She knows my number. That's incredibly stubborn. So was setting 12 chairs. He stood. The good answer had failed him, and without it he looked less polished, younger and meaner around the mouth. Not monstrous, just accustomed to conversations ending when he decided they were finished. Do you know what she was like after you left? He asked. No. She didn't come after me. She was hosting. The words sounded so familiar that I wondered whether Tessa had borrowed them from him or he had borrowed them from her. Graham picked up the bakery box, then seemed to remember it was a gift and put it back. She kept thinking you'd turn around, he said. So did I. He stared at me, uncertain whether I meant her or myself. At the door, he said, "We're supposed to come for dinner tomorrow." "No, you're not. It's Sunday." "I know. Tessa said you always do Sunday dinner." "I do. I did. So this is punishment." "No, this is me not cooking." He opened the door. "For how long?" "I don't know." "That sounds like punishment." "It probably does to the person who expected dinner." He left without slamming the door, which somehow made the visit feel colder. The bakery pie remained on my counter all afternoon. At 3, Tessa texted. "Did Graham come by?" "Yes. Did he apologize?" "He said he did." "Did you accept?" I set the phone down without answering. At 4:30, another message appeared. "Are we still coming tomorrow?" "No, I'm not cooking tomorrow." The typing dots came and went several times. What are we supposed to do? I almost typed a list of nearby restaurants. I almost reminded her that she had a refrigerator full of leftovers. I almost asked what she believed the two of them had done on Sundays before I began inviting them every week. Instead, I wrote, "Whatever you'd like." Her response came immediately. Unbelievable. I put the phone face down. Sunday morning, I woke at 6 out of habit. Sunday dinner usually required an early start if I was making a roast. Even lasagna had its schedule. Sauce by 10, assembly at 2. Into the oven by 4:15 because Graham liked to eat at 5:30 and Tessa always arrived hungry at 5. I lay in bed listening to the quiet. At 7, I got up and made coffee. At 8, I reorganized a drawer that did not need reorganizing. At 9, I opened the refrigerator and saw the eggs, milk, mustard, and half lemon exactly where I had left them. I had spent so much time preparing food for other people that feeding only myself felt like being told to write with my left hand. At 10, I drove to the supermarket. My cart filled automatically. Canned tomatoes, ground beef, ricotta, mozzarella, basil, lasagna noodles. I was standing in front of the parsley when I realized what I had done. An older man beside me inspected 2 bunches with the concentration of a jeweler. He chose one and moved on. I looked into my cart at Sunday dinner for 6. Then I returned every item to its shelf. On the way out, I passed the store cafe and heard someone call my name. A woman near the window raised one hand. It took me a second to recognize Beverly Shaw beneath a knitted red hat. Bev and I had worked together for 19 years before retiring within months of each other. She had invited me to lunch 4 times that year. I had declined twice because Tessa needed me to wait for a delivery, once because Graham's parents were visiting, and once because I had already started Sunday dinner. "Marion Bell," she said as I approached. "Either sit down or admit you've been avoiding me. I've been avoiding everybody equally." "That's comforting." She pushed out the chair opposite hers. I looked at my empty hands, then toward the exit. "You busy?" Bev asked. It was Sunday morning. For the first time in years, no one was waiting for me to turn the day into a meal. "No," I said and sat down. Bev looked into my empty hands. "Did you come to the supermarket for spiritual clarity?" I forgot what I needed. "That happens when you pass 65. Sit long enough and it may come back." She pushed a paper cup toward me. "This one's mine. I've only taken 2 sips and I don't have anything contagious." "You always have something contagious." "Mostly opinions." I took the coffee. Bev had cut her hair since I last saw her. What used to be a smooth gray bob now curled around her ears in unruly waves. The red hat looked hand-knitted by someone angry. "What happened to your hair?" I asked. I stopped fighting it. "Who won? We're still in negotiations." She grinned. I drank the coffee, which was terrible. We had worked in the same administrative office for 19 years. Bev could stretch a 10-minute break into 25 without ever appearing idle. She knew every marriage, allergy, feud, and secret drinking problem in the building, yet somehow people trusted her anyway. She studied me over the rim of her cup. "So," she said, "why aren't you making Sunday dinner?" I nearly choked. "How do you know I make Sunday dinner? You told me the first 2 times I invited you out. The 3rd time, you said your daughter needed help with a delivery. The 4th, you claimed you were too tired, but it was Saturday, so I assumed you were marinating something. I don't marinate until Sunday morning." "Of course you don't." I looked toward the produce section. From where we sat, I could see the parsley. Thanksgiving didn't go well. No Thanksgiving goes well. People just lower the lights and call it tradition. This one went worse. Bev waited. I had not planned to tell her. I had barely told June, and June had been in the room. But Bev did not ask me to forgive anyone before she knew what happened. That felt unusual enough to reward. I told her about the extra guests, the 12 cards, and the plate at the counter. When I repeated Graham's line, her eyebrows disappeared beneath the red hat. He said that out loud? Yes. With his whole adult mouth? Apparently. And Tessa? I looked down at the coffee. She told me not to make it awkward. Bev sat back. There are people who rush to fill silence because they believe silence is a failure. Bev had never been one of them. She let it sit until I wanted to look away. "That's the part," she said finally. "Yes. What did you do?" "I left." "Good." It didn't feel good. And those are different questions. I turned the paper cup between my palms. Everybody thinks I'm overreacting. Everybody, my sister, Graham, Tessa. Those are 3 people. There were 12 at the table. Did all 12 issue a statement? Despite myself, I smiled. I might have grabbed a chair, Bev said, or sat in Graham's lap. Hard to know. I'm brave in other people's disasters. I could have grabbed a chair, but then you'd still be the one solving the problem. I looked at her. She shrugged. I read magazines. The cafe employee called a name that belonged to no one nearby. A cart rattled over the tile. I told Tessa I'm not doing things the same way anymore, I said. What things? Cooking every Sunday, going over early whenever they host, letting her volunteer me for everything. And now you're hiding at a supermarket cafe with me. I wasn't hiding. You returned an entire lasagna to its natural habitat. You saw that? I saw the ricotta. I laughed, and it felt strange enough that I touched my throat. Bev smiled, but did not celebrate. Come see a movie with me this afternoon. What movie? I don't know. Something with attractive people making poor decisions. I should go home. Why? The question was so simple that I had no defense prepared. I looked at the clock above the cafe counter. Normally, by 11, I would have sauce simmering. Tessa would text around noon to ask what I was making, though she always claimed she liked surprises. I need to put away groceries, I said. You didn't buy any. That does make it faster. We saw the movie. It was terrible. A handsome man misunderstood a woman for nearly 2 hours because neither of them knew how telephones worked. Bev ate most of the popcorn and whispered insults at the screen. I laughed loudly enough that a man 2 rows ahead turned around. When I got home, the bakery pie still waited on the counter. I cut myself a slice and ate it standing up. It was annoyingly good. The crust was crisp, the chocolate dark without being bitter, the apology nowhere to be found. Tessa did not call that day. She did not call Monday either. By Tuesday, I had begun carrying my phone from room to room while pretending I had not. Every vibration made my heart lift before I could stop it. Most were advertisements or messages from June, written in the false casual style people use when checking whether a bomb has gone off. Found your blue casserole dish here. No rush. Martin says hello. Weather says snow Friday. On Wednesday afternoon, Tessa texted. Can you talk? I called before I could decide not to. Hi, she said. Hi. We sat inside the word. I'm sorry about what I said about Dad. Thank you. I was angry. I know. He would have hated us fighting. He hated everybody fighting. He once apologized to a parking meter. He backed into it. He still felt the meter had a point. She laughed softly. The sound loosened something in me. I miss you, she said. I miss you too. Another silence, but this one felt less armed. Will you come for dinner Sunday? She asked. You don't have to bring anything. Are you cooking? Graham is. That's almost worth seeing by itself. He can cook. He can assemble. He's making chili. That counts. So you'll come? I wanted to say yes too quickly. Instead, I asked, does he want me there? He knows I'm inviting you. That wasn't my question. Mom, I'm not trying to make this hard. You have a funny way of showing it. I waited. She sighed. Yes, he wants you to come. I agreed. On Sunday, I arrived at 5:30 with nothing in my hands. That was harder than I expected. Twice on the drive, I considered stopping for bread or flowers. Entering someone's home empty-handed felt like showing up without earrings. Tessa opened the door before I knocked. You came. I said I would. I know. She hugged me carefully, as though one of us had stitches. The house smelled of cumin and wood smoke from a candle burning in the entryway. Graham stood at the stove in an apron that said, "Kiss the Chef." I had given it to Frank as a joke in 1998. Tessa must have taken that too. Graham lifted the lid from a red enameled pot. "Don't say it," he said. "I wasn't going to. You were going to make fun of the apron. I was going to ask how you got into my house in 1998. Tessa looked from him to me. "It was Frank's," I explained. "Oh." Graham reached behind his neck. "I can take it off. It's an apron, not a relic." He left it on. The table in the breakfast room had been set for 3. Real napkins, water glasses, bowls with wide rims, no place cards. My chair faced the window. "Wine?" Graham asked. "Yes, please." He poured without adding anything about cooks. The chili was good. Not surprisingly good. Good. Graham had browned the meat properly and used enough spice to make my nose run. There was cornbread, too, slightly dry but warm. "This is excellent," I said. He glanced at Tessa as if checking whether I meant it. "Thank you." "Did you make the cornbread?" "Box mix. Even better. Box mix understands cornbread." For 20 minutes we managed. We discussed the movie Bev and I had seen. Tessa told me about a woman in her office who had accidentally replied to an entire email list with an insult intended for one person. Graham imitated Elaine objecting to the orchid being placed near a draft. I laughed. Then Graham put down his spoon. "I hate this," he said. Tessa's shoulders stiffened. "The chili? This." He gestured among the 3 of us. "Acting like we're strangers having a business lunch." "We're not acting like strangers," Tessa said. "Yes, we are. Nobody can say what they're thinking." I folded my napkin beside my bowl. "What are you thinking?" "That I made a stupid comment and now it's defining everything. It isn't defining everything." "Really?" "Because your sister thinks I'm a monster." Dana won't answer my texts. My own mother asked me if I was raised in a barn. That sounds like Elaine. I apologized. "You told me you were sorry I was hurt, which is an apology. It's half of one." He looked at Tessa. "See?" "Don't look at her," I said. "You're talking to me. I'm trying to understand what you want. I want you to stop pretending the sentence was the only problem. You let me cook for 13 people and planned for me to eat alone at the counter. We did not plan. There was a plate there." Tessa's spoon clicked against her bowl. Graham leaned forward. "You left before anyone had the chance to fix it. I asked where my chair was, and I made a joke. Then Tessa told me not to make a scene." "I apologized for that," she said quietly. "To me. He was in the room when it happened." Tessa looked at him. Graham rubbed one hand over his mouth. "All right. I should have found another chair. I should not have said what I said. I'm sorry. It was closer. Close enough that part of me wanted to accept it and finish my chili." "Thank you," I said. His shoulders lowered. Tessa reached for her wine. "But I'm still not going back to how things were." Graham's shoulders rose again. "What does that mean in practical terms?" he asked. "It means I came tonight as a guest. I'll leave as a guest. Nobody asked you to do anything." "I know. So what are we arguing about?" We're not. I'm telling you. Tessa stood and began collecting the bowls. I almost rose to help. My body moved before my mind did, one hand pressed against the table. Then I stayed seated. She noticed. The bowls trembled slightly as she stacked them. Aunt June called about Christmas, she said. She wants to host, but she can't manage the whole meal. Then everybody should bring something. That's what I said. Good. She thought you could do the ham, rolls, and pies. I said I'd help you. Graham stared into his empty bowl. I looked at my daughter. Did June ask you to ask me? No, but we were discussing the menu. Then she can call me. Why does it matter who asks? Because you just volunteered me again. I said I'd help. Like you helped at Thanksgiving? Her face closed. The moment the words left me, I wished I had chosen different ones, not because they were false, because I had sharpened them. Tessa picked up the bowls. I'm going to clean the kitchen. I can bring one dish to Christmas, I said. June can tell me what she needs most. She gave a small laugh without humor. One dish. Yes, after everything this family has done for you. Graham said her name softly, but she shook him off. No. She wants honesty. Let's be honest. We have included her in everything since Dad died. Every holiday, every weekend, every trip. We made sure she was never alone. The room went quiet. I pushed back my chair. Tessa, I said, you did not give me a place in your life as charity. That isn't what I meant. I hope not. She stood holding our dirty bowls against her blue dress. I took my coat from the hook by the door. Neither of them asked me to stay for dessert. Outside, snow had begun to fall in small, uncertain flakes. My hands were empty again. This time, they did not feel wrong. By the time I reached the main road, the flakes had grown fat enough to blur the lane markers. I drove with both hands tight on the wheel and Tessa's words moving through the car. We made sure you were never alone, as if my place at their table had been a service they provided after Frank died, as if every pan I scrubbed, every Sunday I shaped around their appetite, every holiday I carried into their house had been repayment for their tolerance. At a red light, I nearly called her. I wanted to tell her exactly how cruel the sentence had been. I wanted to ask whether she had really spent 3 years viewing my presence as another responsibility inherited from her father. The light turned green. I drove home instead. June called the next morning. I'm asking you directly, she said before I finished saying hello. Would you please bring rolls to Christmas? Just rolls? Yes, no ham, Adrienne volunteered. Pies. Dana and Rob are ordering them from that place near their house. Vegetables? Elaine is doing green beans and I'm making carrots. Potatoes? Martin. I paused. Martin is making potatoes. He owns a peeler. That remains unconfirmed. June laughed. I'm writing all this down so nobody gets creative. And Tessa, salad, Graham, ice. Very ambitious. I gave him a job he can execute without calling you. I heard the apology inside the joke. All right, I said. I'll bring rolls. Thank you. June? Yes? If something falls through, don't quietly add it to my list. I won't. And if somebody brings bad potatoes, we eat bad potatoes. Now you're asking too much. The family group message arrived an hour later. June listed each assignment with the person's name beside it. She added 3 exclamation points after Graham's ice, which he answered with a thumbs up. Tessa did not respond. Over the following 2 weeks, I kept waiting for her to call. Waiting became its own occupation. I carried my phone into the laundry room. I checked it when I woke in the night. Once, while Bev and I were having lunch, I mistook the vibration of a truck outside for a message and reached into my purse. Bev watched me. Want me to call you so you can get it out of your system? No. I could hang up immediately. Give you the full experience. I put my phone on the table face down. Bev had begun inviting me places with the persistence of a person collecting a debt. We went to a weekday matinee, a craft fair where she insulted pottery prices, and a public garden that looked mostly dead in December. You realize nothing is blooming, I told her. That's why admission is half price. We walked beneath bare branches while she told me about her older brother, Calvin, who had spent 6 months refusing to speak to her because she would not lend him money for a fishing boat. "Does he fish?" I asked. "Not unless seafood starts living in his bathtub." "What did he want with a boat?" "To be the kind of person who had one." "Did you miss him?" "Every day." "Did you lend him the money?" "No." She stopped at a frozen pond and shoved both hands deeper into her coat pockets. "I'm not brave, Marion. I just know Calvin. If I buy the boat, next year I'm buying someplace to park it. Love is expensive enough without financing somebody's costume." It was the sort of sentence Bev could say without sounding as though she had memorized it from a pillow. "I don't want to punish Tessa," I said. "You've mentioned that. She thinks I am. Maybe she does. What if she's right?" Bev looked over the pond. "Are you enjoying this? The frozen mud? The fight?" "No." "Are you trying to hurt her?" "No. Then I'd say you're doing something that hurts her. That's not always the same thing." I wished people would stop making sense when I wanted permission to feel guilty. Christmas gifts became another problem. I had already bought Tessa a cashmere scarf in October, deep blue like the dress she wore on Thanksgiving. After our Sunday dinner, I considered returning it. The thought felt petty, so I wrapped it. Then I worried the gift was too generous and would look like surrender. In the end, I placed it beneath June's tree with everyone else's gifts and wrote "Love Mom" on the tag. I arrived at June and Martin's house on Christmas afternoon carrying 2 baskets of rolls. They were golden, evenly sized, and brushed with melted butter. Limiting myself to rolls had not prevented me from making perfect rolls. June opened the door wearing a red sweater and an expression of controlled alarm. "The potatoes are glue," she whispered. "We eat glue." Elaine brought green beans with almonds. Adrienne is allergic to almonds. We remove the almonds. They're mixed in. Then Adrienne doesn't eat green beans. Dana's pies slid sideways in the car. "June." "What? Has anyone died?" "Not yet." "Then you're hosting Christmas." I kissed her cheek and carried the baskets inside. The kitchen was crowded, but not with me. Martin stood over a pot, beating potatoes with an electric mixer as though punishing them for refusing to become bread. Adrienne sliced the ham. Dana was attempting to move pie filling back into pie crust using a serving spoon. I set down the rolls. "Tell me what to do," I said. June glanced at me. "I'm a guest, not a statue. Can you put those in the warmer?" "Yes, one job." I did it, then poured myself a glass of wine and walked into the living room. That was all. The ceiling did not fall. Elaine sat near the fireplace with Richard. She moved her handbag from the chair beside her. "Marion, sit." I did. She studied my face for a moment. Elaine always seemed to be evaluating light. "I owe you an apology," she said. Richard looked at his wine. "You don't owe me for what Graham said. No, I owe you for what I didn't." The room carried other conversations, but I became aware of each one. Neil discussing a golf course with Rob. Bev would have called that the sound of men hiding from a kitchen. "I was stunned," Elaine continued. "That's not an excuse. I should have spoken. So should several people." Yes. She did not ask me to forgive Graham. I appreciated her for at least 15 seconds. Then she said, "He's been miserable." There it was. Has he? He knows he made a mistake. He has an interesting way of showing it. He's proud. Pride is very useful. It lets everyone else do the uncomfortable part. Elaine's mouth tightened. "I'm not defending him. You're reporting his misery to me. I thought you might want to know he feels terrible. I would rather know whether he understands why." She looked down at the ring on her right hand and rotated it once. "When Graham was young, he joked whenever he was embarrassed. His father and I allowed it because it was easier than making him say what he actually felt." Richard cleared his throat. Elaine looked at him. "We did." He nodded without enthusiasm. "I suppose," she said, "people continue doing what works. That seems to be the theme of the season." The front door opened before she could answer. Tessa came in carrying a large wooden salad bowl. Graham followed with 2 bags of ice and enough tension to lower the room temperature. "Merry Christmas," he announced. Everybody replied too loudly. Tessa saw me near the fireplace. Her gaze paused, moved to the tree, then returned. "Merry Christmas, Mom. Merry Christmas." Graham bent to kiss his mother and shook Richard's hand. When he reached me, he stopped at a distance appropriate for someone delivering a package. "Marion. Graham. I brought the ice. I heard you had that covered." A reluctant smile tugged at his mouth. I had supervision. For a second, he was the man Frank had liked. Then Tessa asked where to put the salad, and the moment closed. Dinner was imperfect and entirely edible. The potatoes could have repaired drywall, but Martin served them proudly. Dana's pecan pie leaned to one side. The ham was slightly cool in the center because no one had coordinated the oven. Everyone ate. I sat between June and Richard. Tessa sat across from me with Graham beside her. She barely touched the salad she had brought. After dinner, people carried their own dishes into the kitchen. I picked up my plate and Richard's. Tessa appeared in front of me. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know, you're a guest. So are you." Her eyes narrowed. "Is that supposed to mean something? It means you can carry Graham's plate." He was 3 feet behind her, holding his own plate. "I've got it," he said. Tessa flushed. I put my dishes beside the sink. "Helping isn't the problem." "Right," she said. "The problem is that nobody asks correctly." June, stacking glasses nearby, suddenly found the cabinet fascinating. "The problem is assuming I'll do everything," I said. "I didn't ask you to do anything today, and I didn't complain. You didn't have to. You walked in and inspected the kitchen like a health department employee. I put rolls in the warmer. You asked if anyone had died. That was a private conversation, not very private. Martin heard you." From the dining room, Martin called. I agreed with her. Nobody laughed. Tessa set her plate too hard on the counter. "You know what? Forget it." She left the kitchen. I stayed through dessert. That was harder than leaving. We opened gifts in the living room. Tessa thanked me for the scarf and wrapped it around her neck immediately, though the house was warm. She had given me a framed photograph of Frank taken the summer before he got sick. He stood at our old backyard grill, grinning at whoever held the camera, one oven mitt raised like a boxing glove. "I found it on my phone," she said. "I thought you might not have it." "I don't." My voice broke on the second word. Tessa's eyes filled. Graham looked away. I held the frame against my chest, and my daughter came around the coffee table to hug me. For a few seconds, the fight disappeared. She smelled like the perfume I had given her years ago. Beneath the cashmere scarf, her shoulders shook once. "I miss him," she whispered. "I know." When she let go, she wiped her eyes and sat beside me. "I have to have a procedure next month," she said quietly. My hand tightened around the frame. "What procedure?" "It's nothing serious, the shoulder thing. They're finally cleaning up the torn tissue." "When?" "The 12th. "Why didn't you tell me?" She glanced toward Graham. He was helping Elaine gather wrapping paper into a bag. "I didn't know if you'd care." The words were unfair. They were also frightened. "Of course I care. I'll need someone to drive me home." "Graham can't? He has something that morning. He says he can probably move it, but—" She did not finish. "You want me to take you?" Tessa looked at me as though the question itself might be a trap. "Yes." I touched the new scarf at her shoulder. "Then I'll take you." Relief crossed her face, followed almost immediately by suspicion. "You will." I said, "I'm not your staff, Tessa. I never said I stopped being your mother." She looked down at her hands. "I don't know what that means anymore. It means I'll pick you up on the 12th. That's not what I meant." "I know." Across the room, Graham tied off the bag of wrapping paper and carried it toward the kitchen. He glanced at us but did not interrupt. Tessa touched the fringe of her new scarf. "I don't want every conversation to feel like I'm being tested. Neither do I. But you keep making these rules. I've made one rule. Don't assume I'll disappear into the kitchen and take care of everything. I never asked you to disappear." I looked at her. She rubbed her forehead. "I don't want to fight again." Then let's not. That's easy for you to say. It wasn't, but I let it go. Graham came over and rested one hand on Tessa's shoulder until she winced. Sorry, he removed it quickly. What are we talking about? The procedure, she said. Mom's going to drive me. I said I could move my meeting. You said you could probably move it. I'll move it. Tessa looked at me and then back at him. It's already arranged. It was arranged 30 seconds ago. Now it's arranged. Something passed between them that had nothing to do with me. Graham's jaw shifted. Tessa pulled the cashmere scarf closer around her neck. Fine, he said. I'll meet you at home afterward. He kissed the top of her head, careful of her shoulder this time. On my way home, the framed photograph of Frank rode upright in the passenger seat, tucked beneath the seatbelt. At every stoplight, the glass caught a different reflection. Street lamp, snow, my own face. I put the photograph on the mantel when I got home. The frame Tessa had chosen was plain dark wood, something Frank would have liked. He had distrusted frames with decorative sayings on them. A picture already says something, he once told me. It doesn't need subtitles. In the photograph, he held his oven-mitt fist near his chin, ready to fight the camera. What would you tell me? I asked. His expression remained annoyingly cheerful. The week before the procedure, Tessa texted me the arrival time, address, and a list of instructions from the surgical center. No food after midnight. Loose shirt. Responsible adult required for discharge. She sent the responsible adult line twice. I know, I replied, just making sure. I know how to read. I didn't mean that. I deleted 3 responses before writing, I'll be there at 6:15. At 6:14 on the 12th, I pulled into their driveway. The house glowed in the dark, every downstairs light on. Graham opened the door before I reached it. He wore a suit and held a travel mug. His tie hung loose around his collar. She's almost ready, he said. Come in. The breakfast room table had been turned into a recovery station. Bottles of water, crackers, tissues, medication, and printed instructions were arranged in straight rows. On the couch, 3 pillows formed a careful slope beneath a folded blanket. You did all this? I asked. Mostly. She's going to have to sleep elevated. It looks good. His face softened at the compliment. I don't like not being there. So move the meeting. He looked toward the stairs. It isn't that simple. It usually isn't. I offered. Tessa said no. She said, you had it handled. That isn't the same thing. He took a long drink from his mug. Do we really have to do this at 6 in the morning? No. Good. Tessa came downstairs wearing loose sweatpants and one of Graham's button-up shirts over a tank top. Her hair was tied low at her neck. Without the scarf or makeup or holiday expression, she looked frightened. Ready? I asked. No. Good answer. Graham set down his mug and went to her. He took her face in both hands and kissed her forehead. I'll call as soon as I'm out, he said. You don't have to. I want to. You'll be presenting. I can step out. You can't step out in the middle. I'll figure it out. She smiled for him. Go be impressive. He kissed her again, then hugged her without touching the bad shoulder. Whatever else was wrong between them, he loved her. I could see that. Love was not the clean evidence I had once believed it to be. At the surgical center, a woman at the front desk handed Tessa a clipboard and pointed us toward 2 rows of blue chairs. A television mounted near the ceiling played a morning show with the captions on. Tessa filled out forms using her left hand, though she was right-handed. You can use the other one until surgery, I said. I'm practicing. You're writing like a doctor. That seems appropriate. She handed me the clipboard after misspelling her own street name. I finished it. When the nurse called her, Tessa stood too quickly. I rose with her. You can come back once we get her changed, the nurse said. The preparation room smelled like antiseptic and warmed blankets. Tessa sat on the edge of a narrow bed in a paper gown, her clothes folded inside a plastic bag beneath the chair. I hate this, she said. The gown. The whole thing. It's a small procedure. I know. The surgeon does it all the time. I know. You'll be home this afternoon. I know, Mom. Then why am I talking? Because you're nervous. That shut me up. The nurse returned to start an IV. Tessa turned her face toward me before the needle went in. She had hated needles her entire life and always pretended she didn't. I gave her my hand. When it was done, she kept holding on. Are you still angry with me? She asked. A blood pressure cuff tightened around her arm. This is not the time. That means yes. Yes. Her fingers loosened. I also love you, I said. She looked at me. The two things are not fighting for space, Tessa. They can both be true. I liked it better when one erased the other. So did I. The nurse checked a number on the monitor and pretended not to hear us. Graham called just before they took Tessa back. He spoke through the car's hands-free system, his voice surrounded by road noise. I'm sorry I'm not there, he said. It's okay, Tessa told him. Call me when you're out. I may be unconscious. Have Marion call. I will, I said. There was a pause. Thank you for doing this, he said. You're welcome. The orderly arrived to wheel Tessa away. She looked at me until the curtain closed between us. The procedure lasted less than 2 hours. I read the same magazine article 3 times and learned nothing except that a woman I had never heard of had renovated a farmhouse. The surgeon came out wearing blue scrubs and told me everything had gone as expected. He explained what they had repaired, what Tessa could not lift, when she should begin moving the joint. I wrote it down even though the instructions would be printed. When Tessa woke, she cried because her mouth was dry. I feel like my tongue is wearing a sweater, she said. I held a straw to her lips. She took one sip and frowned. This water is too wet. I'll speak to management. Dad would have laughed. Yes, he liked bad jokes. He liked his bad jokes. I miss him. So do I. She fell asleep before I finished the sentence. Discharge took another hour. The nurse reviewed medications and demonstrated how to adjust the sling. Tessa nodded solemnly through the entire explanation, then asked me in the elevator why her arm was tied to her body. I drove slowly. At their house, I helped her out of the car and into the recovery nest Graham had built on the couch. She inspected the rows of supplies. He alphabetized the medicine, she said. No, he didn't. He thought about it. I tucked the blanket over her legs. Do you want water? No. Tea? No. Crackers. She closed her eyes. Toast. I made toast. She ate 2 bites, then fell asleep holding the third. I removed it from her hand before it became part of the blanket. Graham texted twice. The first message asked whether she was home. The second said his meeting had run long, but he would leave as soon as he could. At 3, Tessa woke and needed help getting to the bathroom. At 4, I replaced the ice pack. At 5, I gave her the medication exactly as directed and wrote the time on the printed sheet. You don't have to stay, she murmured. I know, he'll be home soon. I know, you keep saying that. You keep telling me things I know. Her mouth lifted. At 6:30, Graham texted that he was still an hour away. I found a can of tomato soup in their pantry and heated it for Tessa. She ate half a bowl, sitting carefully against the pillows. You made this? She asked. Campbell's did most of it. It's good. Their mother must have taught them. Her laugh ended in a grimace when her shoulder moved. At 7:45, the front door finally opened. Graham came in carrying his work bag and a white paper sack. He looked exhausted. His tie was gone, his shirt collar open. Hey! He crossed directly to Tessa and crouched beside the couch. How are you? Floating. That good or bad? Ask the water. It's too wet. He looked at me. Anesthesia, I said. He kissed Tessa's forehead and checked the sling as though he could tell by looking whether it had been fitted correctly. I'm sorry, he said. Everything blew up after the presentation. It's okay, she murmured. He stood and carried the paper sack into the kitchen. I got her prescription. The center filled it before we left. He looked inside the sack. I got the backup prescription. That can be your role. He let that pass. I showed him the medication chart and repeated the surgeon's instructions. Graham listened closely, asked sensible questions, and set alarms on his phone. He loved details when they came printed. Then he opened the refrigerator. "What are we doing for dinner?" he asked. "There's soup for Tessa." "Okay, what about us?" I waited for him to hear himself. He looked over the refrigerator door. "Did you eat?" "No. I thought maybe you'd have something going." Tessa turned her head on the pillow. I picked up my purse from the chair. "I came to care for my daughter," I said. "I did not come to take over your house." His face changed. "I wasn't asking you to take over. You were asking what I made for you." "I asked about dinner." "Exactly." He closed the refrigerator. "Marion, you've been here all day, and you live here." Tessa watched us without speaking. Graham glanced toward her, perhaps expecting help. She lowered her eyes to the blanket. I kissed her forehead. "I'll call in the morning," I said. "You don't have to leave," she whispered. "Yes," I said gently. "I do." At the door, Graham said, "I bought sandwich stuff. Then you're all set." I stepped into the cold and pulled the door shut behind me. Before I reached my car, I heard the dead bolt turn. I sat in the car until the porch light went off. Leaving felt clean only in theory. In practice, I drove home imagining Tessa trying to open a medicine bottle with one hand while Graham made himself a sandwich. By the second traffic light, I had nearly turned around. I kept going. At 9:30, my phone rang. "Are you okay?" I asked before Tessa spoke. "I'm fine. Did you take the next dose?" Graham set an alarm. "Did you eat?" He made grilled cheese. I pictured Graham in his white shirt standing over a skillet. "Good. It was burned. Char contains minerals." She was quiet. "Are you mad at me?" I asked. "I don't know. That's fair. You could have stayed." "I could have." "Then why didn't you?" "Because he came home and expected me to keep taking care of everything. He had a terrible day." "You had surgery. I know that. Does he? That's not fair." "Maybe not." I sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing my coat. "He made the sandwich," she said. "I'm glad." "You keep saying things that sound normal but don't feel normal. I'm trying not to fight with you while you're medicated. I'm not that medicated. You told me water was too wet." "It was." I smiled despite myself. "Do you want me to come in the morning?" I asked. "Yes." "What time? Early? 8? 7? I'll be there." I arrived at 7 with coffee for myself and nothing else. No casserole, no grocery bags, no plastic containers lined up for later. Graham answered the door wearing sweatpants and yesterday's undershirt, his hair stuck up on one side. "She didn't sleep much," he said. "Neither did you." She kept sliding down the pillows. "I'll look at them." He followed me to the living room where Tessa lay with her eyes closed and the blanket tucked beneath her chin. The recovery station was no longer orderly. Cracker wrappers covered the table. A water bottle had rolled beneath the couch. 2 medicine bottles stood uncapped beside the printed chart. I checked the chart. "You missed the 2 o'clock dose." "She was asleep," Graham said. "The instructions say to wake her. I didn't know. It's highlighted. I saw the highlight. I thought sleep was more important." Tessa opened one eye. "Please don't have a custody battle over me." "No battles," I said. Graham picked up the chart. "I'll know tonight." He sounded embarrassed rather than defensive. That mattered. I helped Tessa sit up, adjusted the sling, and gave her the medication with crackers. Graham retrieved the water bottle from under the couch. When I asked for a clean washcloth, he brought one without asking what it was for. He made scrambled eggs for all 3 of us. They were overcooked, but nobody mentioned it. "I have calls from 9 until 11, he said. "I'll be upstairs. Knock if you need me. I can stay with her." "I know. I'm still here." Tessa looked between us. "This is fun." After he went upstairs, I helped her change into a clean shirt. She cursed the sling, the surgeon, buttons, gravity, and the design of the human shoulder. "You're very spiritual after surgery," I told her. "Give me that sleeve. You need to lean forward." "I am leaning." "You're glaring." "It's the same muscle group." When she was dressed, she sat at the kitchen table while I made toast. Just for her. I ate half a banana from the fruit bowl. "You could make yourself something," she said. "I'm not hungry. You always say that when you're cooking." "I'm not cooking. You're making toast. Toast is heat applied to bread. That sounds like cooking. You're becoming difficult again. The medication must be working." She smiled, then watched me spread jam one-handed because the knife was sticky. "Dad would have made enough breakfast for 12, she said. "Your father would have taken you to a diner and told the waitress it was his recipe. He made pancakes. He made one pancake. It covered the entire skillet and was raw in the middle. I liked it. You were afraid to hurt him." She traced a finger through crumbs on the table. "Did you really hate doing all that stuff for us?" she asked. I set down the knife. "No. But now you talk about it like we forced you. That isn't what I mean." "What do you mean?" The house above us creaked. Graham's voice began faintly through the ceiling, calm and professional, nothing like the man who had stood in front of an open refrigerator asking what I had made him. "I liked Sunday dinners," I said. "I liked knowing you were coming. After your father died, planning meals gave the week a shape. So we did help you." I heard the old edge in it, softer because she was tired. "Yes, you did." That surprised her. "I needed you," I said, probably more than I admitted. Being useful felt close to being needed, and being needed felt close to being loved. You were loved. I know. Do you? Most days. Tessa looked toward the staircase. "When did it stop feeling like love?" she asked. "It didn't stop all at once. That's the problem. I liked cooking, so nobody noticed when liking it became my obligation. I was good at helping, so nobody asked whether I wanted to, including me. You could have said no. Yes." She waited, perhaps expecting me to blame her again. "I should have," I said, "long before Thanksgiving." Tessa's face softened. "Then why didn't you?" "Because I was afraid if I stopped doing what everybody needed, I'd find out who still wanted me around." The words embarrassed me as soon as they were spoken. They sounded smaller than I wanted to be. Tessa reached across the table with her left hand. "I wanted you around. Then you should have saved me a chair." She pulled her hand back. There it was again. The place where honesty became accusation, even when both were true. "I'm sorry," I said. That was sharp. It was true. I sat opposite her. "Do you want me to leave Graham?" she asked. The question was so unexpected that I stared. "What? Is that what this is becoming?" "No. You keep pointing out everything he does wrong. I point out what he does to me. You talk about the way he treats me, too. Because you use the way he treats you to explain why you can't stand up for me." She looked down. "I do not want you to leave your husband," I said. "I don't want to run your marriage, rescue you from it, or be blamed for it. I want you to notice what happens while it's happening. I notice, then say something. It isn't always that simple. No, it's usually one very difficult sentence." Graham came down at 11 and found us playing gin rummy at the kitchen table. He had changed into a sweater and combed his hair. "Who's winning?" "Your wife," I said. "She cheats. I'm injured," Tessa said. "That would be unethical." He bent to kiss her, and she lifted her face to him. Their affection was easy in small moments. That made the larger ones harder to understand, not easier. For the next week, I came each morning and left before dinner. I changed dressings, drove Tessa to her first follow-up, and sat with her while Graham worked upstairs. At 4, I packed my purse. The first 2 days, Graham asked whether I was sure I couldn't stay. By the 3rd, he stopped asking. He learned to make tomato soup and grilled cheese without burning either. He made a schedule for the medication, then revised it twice. He complained about the laundry, but did it. Tessa began giving him instructions, and more importantly, allowing the silence after them to remain his problem. Once I heard her tell him, "No, my mother isn't picking that up. You said you would." He did not respond for several seconds. Then he said, "Fine." It was not a revolution. It was one errand. Still, I smiled all the way home. By Richard's birthday in February, Tessa had regained enough movement to lift a wine glass and point with authority. Elaine organized dinner at an Italian restaurant with dim lighting and menus the size of legal folders. I went because she invited me herself. The hostess led us to a round table near the back. There were 9 chairs and 9 adults. I counted before I could stop myself. Tessa saw me count. Her mouth tightened, but she said nothing. Dinner went well at first. Richard told a long story about getting lost on a business trip in 1987. Adrian ordered a pasta dish without almonds after questioning the waiter twice. Graham refilled my wine when it was low. After the plates were cleared, the waiter asked whether anyone wanted dessert. Graham pointed at me. "Careful," he said. "She's the family chef. She'll judge the tiramisu." The word struck lightly, almost playfully. That was what made it dangerous. Everyone knew enough to become quiet, but not enough to know what the correct response should be. "I'm not the family chef," I said. Graham's smile held. "It's a compliment. I'm Tessa's mother. I know who you are, Marion. Then call me that." Richard studied his empty coffee cup. Elaine closed her eyes briefly. Neil reached for the dessert menu. Across the table, Tessa said nothing. Graham leaned back. "All right." The waiter, trapped beside him, asked whether we still wanted tiramisu. "We do," Richard said with desperate enthusiasm. 2. Conversation restarted in pieces. I did not leave. That mattered to me. I ate tiramisu, helped Richard open a stubborn birthday card, and stayed until everyone put on their coats. Tessa followed me into the parking lot. "Mom," I kept walking toward my car. "Can you stop?" I stopped. Her breath clouded between us. "Did you have to correct him in front of everybody?" "Yes." "He wasn't insulting you." "I asked him not to call me that." "You never asked him." "I asked both of you to stop treating me as a function. I thought the vocabulary was included." She shoved her hands into her coat pockets. I froze. "You always freeze when he says something cruel to me." "He wasn't being cruel." "Then why did you freeze?" She looked back toward the restaurant windows. Graham stood inside talking to Neil, giving us privacy or waiting us out. "I knew you'd be upset," she said, "and you hoped I'd swallow it so you wouldn't have to be. That isn't fair. Freezing is a choice, Tessa. Somebody else just pays for it." She flinched. I regretted the sentence, but not its truth. "What was I supposed to say?" she demanded. "You could have said, 'She asked you to stop.' And then what? Then he might have been angry. At me, yes." Her eyes filled, not with tears this time, but with something harder. "You think I'm a coward?" "No, I think you're afraid of the wrong person." Graham came through the restaurant door carrying Tessa's scarf over one arm. "Everything okay?" Tessa looked at him. For one second, I thought she might finally answer honestly. Then she took the scarf and said, "It's fine." I unlocked my car. Behind me, Graham asked what we had been discussing. Tessa waited until my door closed before she replied. Through the glass, I saw her mouth form 2 words. Nothing important. I drove away before either of them came outside. At home, I put my keys in the ceramic bowl by the door and stood in my coat, listening for a phone call I did not want to answer. It came 11 minutes later. I let Tessa leave a voicemail. "I don't know why you said that to me. You think you understand my marriage, but you don't. Graham is not somebody I'm afraid of. I was trying to keep a birthday dinner from turning into another Thanksgiving. Apparently, that makes me a coward." "Fine. I hope you're happy." I deleted the message, then regretted deleting it. Pain wanted records, something to replay later when guilt began editing the past. Graham texted the next morning. "Tessa was crying all night. Whatever problem you have with me, please stop taking it out on her." I read that message 3 times. It was impressive how efficiently he had rearranged the roles. By the 3rd sentence, he was the target, Tessa was the victim, and I was the person causing harm. I did not answer. At noon, Bev arrived carrying a paper bag and walked in before I invited her. "I brought sandwiches," she said. "You sounded strange on the phone. We spoke for 40 seconds. 38. You usually need at least a minute to criticize my lunch choices." She removed her coat and looked at the framed photograph on the mantel. That Frank? Yes. He looks like he's about to punch somebody with an oven mitt. He was threatening the grill. I wish I'd met him. He would have liked you. He had excellent taste. I took the bag into the kitchen. Bev had brought tuna salad for herself and turkey for me, plus 2 bags of chips because she did not believe in choosing. We ate at the kitchen table. I told her about Richard's birthday, including the part where I corrected Graham and the part where Tessa told him our conversation was nothing important. Bev chewed slowly. What? I asked. I'm making sure the tuna is dead before I speak. Speak. You want my opinion or my agreement? I don't know. Then I'll save both. She opened the second bag of chips. Did I go too far? I asked. Probably. I stared at her. Most important things are slightly too far when you first start doing them. That sounds suspiciously like an opinion. You dragged it out of me. I told her she was afraid of her husband. Is she? She says she isn't. That wasn't my question. I pushed away the rest of my sandwich. She cares too much about keeping him happy. So did I with my first husband. He wasn't frightening. He was exhausting. There's a difference, but both will teach you to surrender before you know you're doing it. You never told me that. You never asked. What happened? He left me for a woman who enjoyed boating. I laughed before I could stop myself. Bev nodded. That was my response, too. Is that why you wouldn't buy Calvin the fishing boat? That and the fact that Calvin is an idiot. She wiped crumbs from her fingers. Come away with me next weekend. Where? The city. Train leaves Saturday morning. There's an exhibit I want to see, and I have a hotel coupon that expires in March. Why do you have a hotel coupon? I complained about a ceiling fan. Was there something wrong with it? It existed. I shook my head. Frank and I talked about taking that train, I said. Then you know where it goes. We kept putting it off. Trains are patient. Coupons aren't. My first instinct was to check the calendar. Sunday dinner no longer occupied Sunday, but some part of me still believed Tessa might call and need the day. Then I remembered the voicemail I had deleted. I'll go, I said. Bev narrowed her eyes. That was too easy. Ask me again. I'll be difficult. No, I've learned something. The train left at 8:10 Saturday morning. Bev arrived at the station with one rolling suitcase large enough for a cruise. I carried a canvas overnight bag. What did you pack? I asked. Options. For one night, I contained multitudes. She had also packed hard-boiled eggs, which she began eating before we cleared the suburbs. The man across the aisle moved 2 seats away. The farther we traveled, the more nervous I became. Not about the trip, about being unreachable. I had told June where I was going. I had not told Tessa. At 10:30, my phone vibrated. A message from Tessa. Are you home today? I looked at it until the screen dimmed. Bev glanced over the top of her book. Emergency? She asked if I'm home. That's not an emergency. That's a census question. I typed, away for the weekend, back Sunday evening. Her reply came quickly. Where are you? On the train with Bev. What train? I gave her the destination. Why didn't you tell me? I nearly answered. Why would I? The words looked satisfying on the screen and ugly in my hand. I wrote, it was a last-minute trip. She did not respond. The city was colder than home and windier. Bev's hotel coupon placed us in a room overlooking an air conditioning unit and half of a brick wall. She opened the curtains, studied the view, and declared it honest. We walked through the art museum until my feet hurt. Bev loved paintings she could not explain and distrusted any label containing the word liminal. I spent 20 minutes in front of a portrait of an older woman seated beside an empty table. Her hands rested in her lap. Nothing in the painting suggested she was waiting for anyone. At dinner, a waiter brought bread without being asked. He refilled my water each time it became half empty. When I reached for our plates after we finished, he stopped me gently. I've got those, he said. Such a small sentence. I let go. The next morning, Bev slept late. I walked alone to a cafe, drank coffee at a window table, and bought a postcard from a shop near the station. The picture showed the museum beneath a blue summer sky that had nothing to do with the gray day outside. I wrote Tessa's name on the back. Then I could not decide what to say. Wish you were here sounded like accusation. Thinking of you sounded like a plea. Having a wonderful time sounded false, though I had enjoyed myself. I put the blank card into my bag. Our return train arrived 20 minutes late. By the time Bev and I parted at the station, the sun had gone down. Tessa was sitting on my front step when I pulled into the driveway. She stood as my headlights swept across her. The cashmere scarf I had given her was wrapped twice around her neck. Her shoulder had healed enough that she could fold both arms against the cold. I parked and got out. "What are you doing here?" "Waiting." "You could have called." "I did." My phone was still on silent in my bag. "How long have you been here?" 40 minutes. "Tessa, it's freezing. You didn't tell me you were leaving. I didn't know I was supposed to." She flinched as if I had used the sharper version after all. I unlocked the door and let us inside. She followed me to the kitchen while I turned on lights. "Do you want tea?" "No. You said that the last time you came angry." "I'm not angry. You were sitting on my front step in February. I needed to talk to you where Graham couldn't hear. That stopped me." I set down my bag. "Is everything okay? Why does everyone ask that like there's one answer?" "I'm asking whether you're safe." "Yes, I'm safe." "Then sit down." This time, she did. I filled the kettle anyway. My hands needed something ordinary. Tessa unwound the scarf and laid it across her lap. "He asked me what you said in the parking lot," she began. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing." "I heard. I didn't mean you were nothing important. I know what you meant. It wasn't better." She rubbed the end of the scarf between her fingers. "When we got home, he kept asking. I finally told him." "All of it?" "That you said I was afraid of him. I said you were afraid of the wrong person. That distinction did not improve his mood. I'm sure. He thinks you're trying to turn me against him. I'm not. I told him that." The kettle began to murmur on the stove. "He asked why I didn't defend him at dinner," she said. "I said there wasn't anything to defend. You asked him to stop calling you the chef. He said it was affectionate. I said it didn't matter if you didn't like it." That sounds like the difficult sentence. "I said it 3 hours late. Still counts." She looked at me. "He slept in the guest room." I turned off the kettle before it whistled. "Tessa, I'm not going to be the reason you fight with your husband." "You're not. You just came here from a fight about me. The fight was about Thanksgiving." The room went still. She lowered her eyes to the scarf. "I lied to you," she said. "About what?" "The seating." I did not move. I didn't just know we were crowded. Graham and I talked about it Wednesday night after you went to bed. I remembered their voices through the ceiling. Chairs. Ridiculous. "He said we couldn't fit 13 without making the room look cramped," she continued. "I said we could bring the desk chair in. He said it wouldn't match and would block the doorway. So he suggested the counter." "Yes. And you agreed." "I didn't say yes exactly." "What did you say?" "Nothing." There it was again. Her silence doing work while she claimed it had made no decision. "I set your plate there," she said, "before everybody arrived." I gripped the edge of the counter. "You said it." "Yes. Then you watched me cook all afternoon. I thought I would fix it before dinner." "How?" "I don't know. You wrote the cards." "Yes." "I asked where I was sitting." "I know. And you told me it would be fine." Her face folded. I was ashamed. "Not enough to tell me?" "No." The honesty hurt worse than another excuse. "Why me?" I asked. "Why was I the person you could put in the kitchen? Because I thought you'd forgive me." That isn't an answer. Because Elaine would have noticed if the table looked crowded. Because Graham was already stressed. Because Evan and Lydia had nowhere else to go. Because you always say you don't care about formal things. None of those are the reason. Tears slid down her face. Because I knew you would still love me. I looked at my daughter and understood the terrible privilege I had given her. My love had felt so permanent that it became the safest thing in the room to injure. "You always said feeding people was how you loved them," she whispered. I said feeding you was love. I know. I never said love made me furniture. Tessa pressed the scarf to her face. I don't know how to fix this, neither do I. You always know. No, I usually do something useful until everybody mistakes it for knowing. The kettle clicked as it cooled. I poured water over 2 tea bags, though neither of us had asked for tea, and carried the mugs to the table. Tessa wrapped both hands around hers. I'm sorry, she said. Not because you left, not because everybody was uncomfortable. I'm sorry I put the plate there. I'm sorry I heard him say that and looked at you and still asked you to make it easier for me. I sat across from her. Thank you. Do you forgive me? The question came too quickly. She needed the answer to be yes so badly that it felt like another task placed in my hands. I believe you're sorry. That isn't what I asked. It's what I can give you tonight. She nodded, crying again without wiping her face. I don't want this to be who I am, she said. It isn't all of who you are, but it is some of it. Yes. The word hurt her. A lie would have hurt us both. She drank her tea and grimaced because it was too hot. What happened with Graham? I asked. He wanted me to promise I wouldn't discuss our marriage with you anymore. That seems reasonable. Her head snapped up. I don't want to be in your marriage, I said. I've told you that. He didn't mean normal privacy. He wants me to tell you that he had nothing to do with the seating. He told me the counter was his idea. He said it was an option. That's the word he used with me, too. He says I decided. You did. So did he. Yes. Her shoulders lowered. She had expected me to assign him the larger portion and leave her with whatever remained. He wants you to apologize for saying I'm afraid of him, she said. Are you? No. Then I'm sorry I said it. Tessa stared at me. Really? I was wrong about what you fear. What do you think I fear? Disappointing him, making him uncomfortable, having him withdraw from you. Her eyes moved toward the dark window. That's not the same as being afraid of him. No, it can still run your life. She turned her mug in small circles. He isn't some villain, she said. I know, he can be so thoughtful. I know, he did all that stuff for my recovery. I saw. He notices when I'm cold. He remembers which wine I like. When Dad died, he sat outside the bathroom door while I cried because I wouldn't let him in. I remember. Then why do I feel like I'm defending him? Because right now, you are. She looked tired enough to sleep sitting up. Do you want to stay here tonight? I asked. Her hesitation answered before she did. No. If I stay, it becomes a thing. It's already a thing. I should go home. Then go home. You say that like you don't care. I say it because you're waiting for me to decide. She looked almost angry, then considered it. I hate this new version of you, she said. So do I sometimes. That made her laugh through the last of her tears. Before she left, she called Graham from my hallway. She told him she was safe and would be home in 20 minutes. I could hear his voice, but not his words. No, Tessa said. She didn't ask me to stay. A pause. I'm not doing this on the phone. Another pause. Because I'm coming home, Graham. She ended the call and stood looking at the screen. I can drive you, I offered. My car is outside. I know. She hugged me at the door. It was not the careful, symbolic embrace we had performed at Christmas. She held on like someone standing in moving water. I do forgive you, I said into her hair. I just don't trust everything yet. Her arms tightened. I understand. That was not the same as liking it, but it was more than she had understood before. Our repair did not proceed in a straight line. For several weeks, Tessa called every few days, then apologized for calling too often, which irritated me more than the calls. We met for coffee. She came to my house one Saturday and brought bagels without asking what I wanted. You got sesame, I said. You like sesame. I do. I can know things without oppressing you. I'll update my records. She smiled and opened the cream cheese. We talked about her shoulder, June's gluey potatoes, and Bev's campaign to make me join a walking group. We did not discuss Graham unless Tessa brought him up, and when she began listing the ways he had annoyed her, I stopped her. Tell him. I did. Then give him time to answer. What if his answer is wrong? That is not my department. You used to have more departments. I've downsized. At Easter, Elaine hosted lunch. The meal was catered, a decision she announced repeatedly as if she had invented peace. Tessa arrived carrying flowers. Graham came behind her with 2 bottles of wine. I brought nothing because Elaine had told me to bring nothing. While we waited for lunch, Richard asked whether anyone had thought about dessert. The caterer sent lemon bars, Elaine said. Marion could probably rescue us with a pie, Graham said. His tone was light, but the room heard it. Before I could answer, Tessa turned to him. She was told not to bring anything. I know, I'm kidding. Then pick something else to kid about. Graham's smile faded. It was 1 sentence. It did not shake the windows or end the lunch. Richard poured himself more wine. Elaine asked June about her sweater. I stood near the fireplace holding a glass of water and felt my daughter's words settle somewhere inside me. Graham stayed polite through the meal. He passed me the bread. He asked about my trip with Bev. But on the porch afterward, I heard him tell Tessa she had embarrassed him. I asked you not to make jokes about her cooking, Tessa said. You corrected me like I'm an employee. You didn't listen when I said it privately. I wasn't even talking to her. That's worse. They noticed me before the conversation went further. Graham walked to the car. Tessa remained on the porch, face flushed. You don't have to explain, I said. I wasn't going to. Good. She looked toward Graham's car. Was I rude? A little. Her expression fell. He was rude first, I added. That doesn't make your part disappear. You're impossible now. I'm getting that on a t-shirt. By summer, the small arguments had spread beyond me. Tessa stopped smoothing over Graham's irritation when he volunteered their house for gatherings. She asked him to handle his own parents' anniversary plans instead of taking them on herself. She refused to leave work early for a delivery he had scheduled without asking. None of those things were dramatic. That was why they mattered. Their marriage had been arranged around dozens of accommodations, too ordinary to notice until she stopped making them. Graham noticed. According to Tessa, he said she had become cold. He said she was keeping score. He said every request now turned into a negotiation. Do you want to know what I said? She asked me one night on the phone. Probably not. I told him it only feels like negotiation because he's used to winning before he asks. That sounds like something Bev would say. I thought of it myself. I'm proud of you. Don't tell him I said that. Why? Because it's between you and him. In August, Tessa appeared at my door carrying the same overnight case she had returned after Thanksgiving. The sight of it made my stomach drop. What happened? We had a fight. What kind of fight? The kind where I need somewhere to sleep. I let her in. She put the case in the hallway and stood with her arms folded. Her shoulder had healed, but she still rubbed it when she was tense. Did he hurt you? No. Did you hurt him? No. Then tell me what happened. She walked into the living room and sat beneath Frank's photograph. Graham had agreed to host an anniversary dinner for his parents. He told Tessa it would be small, then invited 16 adults and made a list of what needed to be done. When she said they should hire help or move the dinner to a restaurant, he told her she was capable of managing one evening. I said I wasn't doing it, she told me. He said, fine, ask your mother. She likes this stuff. I closed my eyes. I told him you weren't available. He said I hadn't even asked. Good. He said this has gone too far, that you're punishing both of us and I'm helping. What did you say? I said you weren't the problem. And? He asked what the problem was. Her fingers dug into the couch cushion. I told him I was tired of being the person who absorbs everything. I sat beside her. He said he absorbs plenty. He said he works hard, takes care of the house, plans things, tries to give me a good life. He isn't wrong. No. But then he said, I was happier before you started filling my head with grievances. What did you do? I asked him whether he thought I had a head of my own. That went well, I assume. He said I was twisting his words. Then I said he only likes women when we're useful. I winced. I know, she said. It was cruel. What did he say? Nothing for a while. Then he said, maybe we needed some space, and you came here. Where else would I go? The question was frightened, but beneath it lived the same old assumption. My house, my bed, my care, waiting without discussion. You can stay tonight, I said. Her face changed. Tonight? Yes. What about tomorrow? We'll figure it out. You have 3 empty bedrooms. I know how many bedrooms I have. You think I'm using you. I think you came here because you're upset and expected me to become the answer. You're my mother. And you are a 40-year-old woman deciding what happens in your marriage. So I can't stay with my own mother. You can stay while you make a plan, not while you avoid one. She stood so quickly that the couch cushion bounced. This is what you wanted. The words stunned both of us. Tessa, you wanted me to stand up to him. I did. Now I don't have a home, and you're giving me one night. You have a home. You left during a fight. He told me to. He suggested space. You're taking his side? No. I'm refusing to turn your marriage into a contest where choosing my house means choosing me. Her face hardened. I knew there would be conditions. There are always conditions. Mine are just spoken now. She picked up the overnight case. Where are you going? To June's. Does June know? No. Then call her before you arrive. I know how to ask. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle Frank's photograph on the mantel. I reached to steady it. My hand remained against the frame long after the glass stopped trembling. June called before I had moved away from the mantel. She's here, I assumed. She's crying. I assumed that too. What happened? She asked to stay. I told her she could spend tonight here while she made a plan. You told your own daughter she could stay one night. I told my adult daughter I would not become her hiding place. What does that even mean? It means I don't want her choosing my spare bedroom instead of deciding what she wants from her marriage. June lowered her voice. You could have said that after she calmed down. I did say she could stay tonight. Well, she's staying here. All right. You don't sound very concerned. I'm very concerned. You're not acting like it. I looked at Frank's picture. The frame sat straight again, but my hand remained near it. Is she safe? I asked. Yes. Does she have somewhere to sleep? Yes. Then what would concern look like? You could call her. She left 12 minutes ago. Sometimes you are so cold. The word caught me. I'm standing in the hallway trying not to chase her car, I said. That is what concern looks like right now. June became quiet. She can stay as long as she needs, she said more softly. Are you sure? Of course. What if she stays 3 months? She won't. What if she does? That's different. Why? Because Martin and I don't have 3 empty bedrooms. I closed my eyes. Now you understand why the number of rooms isn't the issue. June exhaled. I'm trying to help. So am I. It doesn't feel like it. No, it feels terrible. I sent Tessa a message before going to bed. I love you. You can stay tomorrow too if you're willing to talk about a plan. I'm sorry tonight went badly. She did not answer. The following morning, June texted to say Tessa had gone to work wearing one of her blouses. That afternoon, she reported that Tessa and Graham had spoken. By evening, June stopped reporting because Tessa had asked her to. I respected that, though I checked my phone every 10 minutes. 4 days passed before Tessa called. I'm going home, she said. Okay, that's all you're going to say? What would you like me to say? That you think I'm making the right decision. I don't know whether you are. We talked. Good. He apologized. Good. He said he never meant for me to feel taken for granted. That matters. He's going to handle the anniversary dinner. He called the restaurant this morning. That also matters. She paused. You sound skeptical. I'm trying not to sound anything. Well, you're succeeding. Tessa, if you want to go home, go home. Wanting to try again is reason enough. What if it doesn't work? Then you'll know more than you know now. She was quiet. I'm sorry I said this was what you wanted, she said. Thank you. I know you don't want us to split up. No. But you don't want us to stay together either. I want you to stop asking me to want your life for you. She let out a small, tired laugh. There she is. Who? The woman with all the new rules. I have them laminated now. That earned a real laugh. Tessa went home. She and Graham attended a few counseling sessions, though she rarely mentioned them, and I did not ask. The anniversary dinner took place at a restaurant. Elaine said it was lovely. Nobody cooked, nobody was displaced, and Graham complained only once about the bill. For 6 weeks, things appeared quieter. Then Graham came to my house alone. It was a Saturday afternoon in late September. I had been pruning a stubborn shrub beside the front steps, and he found me wearing gardening gloves with a branch caught in my hair. "Do you have a minute?" he asked. "I have several. The shrub is winning." He followed me inside. I offered coffee. He accepted, then did not drink it. "Tessa thinks I'm here with Neil," he said. "I don't like that, neither do I." "Then why are you here?" "Because every time we discuss you, the conversation falls apart. Stop discussing me. It isn't that simple. It seems simple from here." He rubbed both palms against his knees. "I don't know what you want from me." "Nothing." "That's not true." "What does Tessa want?" "She wants me to admit we put you at the counter on purpose." "You did." "I've admitted that." "To her?" "Yes." "And?" "She says I still talk about it like a logistical error. It was a logistical decision. You know what I mean?" "I do." He picked up the coffee, took a sip, and set it down too quickly. "I didn't think it would hurt you," he said. "That's the truth." "All right. I thought you'd roll your eyes, tell me I was an idiot, and pull over a chair. That is probably what I would have done a year earlier. Then how was I supposed to know everything had changed? Nothing had changed. I was tired of pretending it hadn't." His mouth tightened. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not that the joke landed wrong. Not that you were upset. I'm sorry I treated you like the work you did mattered more than having you at the table. It was the apology I had wanted." "Thank you," I said. He waited. I understood then why the apology did not settle him. He had offered it as a key and expected to hear a lock turn. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now I believe you understand. And Sunday dinners? No? Christmas? I don't know." "So nothing changes. Something already changed. You apologized honestly. That doesn't help my marriage. Your marriage isn't mine to repair. It became yours the second you walked out. No, it became visible." He stood and went to the window. The stubborn shrub leaned against the glass. "She was happy before this," he said. "Was she?" "Yes." "She was quiet. That isn't fair." "It may not be." He turned around. For the first time since I had known him, Graham looked less angry than afraid. "I love her," he said. "I know. I've built my entire life around her. Then listen when she tells you she can't breathe in it." His face hardened again. "You always have to get the last line." "No, you're welcome to stay." He left his coffee untouched. Tessa never learned about the visit from me. If Graham told her, she did not mention it. Their quiet lasted until late October. The fight that ended it began over Thanksgiving. Graham wanted to host his parents, Neil, Adrienne, and 2 couples from work. He said he would order most of the food. Tessa said she had already accepted June's invitation. "Did June invite both of you?" I asked when Tessa called me. "Yes." "And what did Graham say?" "He won't go if you're there." "I will be there." "I know." "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I'm telling you what happened." I sat back, surprised. "All right," I said. "He says we need one holiday without the tension. He is welcome to decline." That's what I said. The argument continued after our call. Graham told Tessa that supporting their marriage meant refusing to participate in a gathering where he would be uncomfortable. Tessa told him supporting their marriage could not require treating her mother as the source of every problem. He asked her to choose, not forever, not in those words. Just Thanksgiving, he said, just one clear sign that she was on his side. Tessa packed the overnight case again. This time she did not bring it to my house or June's. She rented a small apartment 15 minutes from work, one bedroom, beige carpet, a refrigerator that hummed loudly enough to interrupt conversation. She told me only after she had moved in. "I didn't want you to think I expected your help," she said. "You could have asked." I thought asking was dangerous now. Asking is not demanding. I'm still learning the difference. Her couch had not arrived, so we sat on folding chairs beside two sealed boxes. The cashmere scarf lay across the back of one. "Is this permanent?" I asked. "I don't know." "Do you want it to be?" "I don't know." "Does Graham?" "He wants me to come home." "And?" "He wants things to be normal." "That isn't what I asked." She looked around the apartment. "I don't know what normal was," she said. I reached for her hand. "This is not a victory for me." "I know, I don't want you here." "That's a strange thing to say while visiting." "You know what I mean." Her mouth trembled. "I keep thinking you could say you were right. I don't feel right. You were. That doesn't make this good." She squeezed my fingers. The next Saturday, I helped her hang curtains. She asked. I said yes. We argued over whether they were level, discovered the rod was crooked, and left it crooked because neither of us wanted to drill another hole. I did not bring a casserole. Tessa ordered pizza and remembered to ask which toppings I wanted. Our relationship began changing in such small ways that I sometimes missed the old ease. She no longer walked into my house calling, "What smells good?" she asked before opening my refrigerator. If she wanted to visit, she suggested a time instead of announcing that she was on her way. I missed being assumed. I did not miss being consumed. Graham called me once after she moved out. "She won't listen to me," he said. "Then stop talking for a while. She says I make every apology into a negotiation. Do you? I'm trying to save my marriage? So is she. By leaving, by refusing to disappear inside it." He was silent. "I love her," he said again. "I know." This time, I added, "Love is not the part either of you doubts." November came around with bare trees and supermarket displays of canned pumpkin. The first time I saw a turkey in a freezer case, my chest tightened. June called and told me Thanksgiving would be small. She and Martin, Dana and Rob, Tessa if she came, me. "Bring cranberry sauce," she said. "Only cranberry sauce?" "Only cranberry sauce." "What kind?" "Your kind." That is dangerously vague. "Marion, I'll bring cranberry sauce." The night before Thanksgiving, Tessa called. "Are you going tomorrow?" she asked. "Yes." "Is Graham?" "I don't know." "He isn't." I waited. He says going without him means I've made my choice. "What did you say?" I said not going would also be a choice. "That sounds true. I don't know if I can walk in there alone." "You won't be alone." "That's not what I mean." "I know." She breathed into the phone. "Will you be angry if I don't come?" "No." "Disappointed?" "Yes." "Thank you for being honest." After we hung up, I made cranberry sauce, one dish. I did not add rolls because June might need them. I did not bake a pie in case Dana slid sideways again. I put the sauce in a glass bowl, covered it, and went to bed. The following afternoon, June's table was set when I arrived. Cream place cards stood beside every plate. My name was written on the card next to an empty chair. On the other side of that chair was Tessa's name. At 4:30, the chair was still empty. At 4:45, headlights swept across the front windows. A car door slammed outside. Tessa came through the door carrying a pie in a plastic bakery dome. Snow dusted the shoulders of her coat. The blue cashmere scarf was wrapped around her neck, and her cheeks were bright from the cold. June took the pie before she had both feet inside. "You came." I said I might. You also said you might not. I like keeping expectations manageable. June hugged her with enough force to wrinkle the pie dome between them. Careful, Tessa said. That's dessert. Dana appeared from the kitchen. We already have dessert. Now you have more. What kind? Pumpkin. Dana peered through the plastic. It looks sturdy. That was my main criterion. Martin took Tessa's coat. Rob called hello from the living room. Everybody spoke a little too loudly, filling the entryway so there would be no silence in which to ask where Graham was. Tessa saw me beside the dining room door. Hi, Mom. Hi. She came toward me, stopping close enough to hug but waiting. I opened my arms. Her body softened against mine. She smelled like cold air and the perfume I remembered. I felt her breathe in, hold it, and release. I'm glad you came, I said. I almost didn't. I know. She drew back. How? You're 20 minutes late. I'm always 20 minutes late. Exactly. Today it means something. Her smile trembled. June lifted the pie. Where should I put this? In a secure location, Dana said. It has load-bearing potential. The kitchen was warm and disorganized. Martin had improved his potatoes by refusing to use an electric mixer. Dana and Rob had brought an apple pie that remained centered in its crust. June's turkey rested beneath foil on the counter. My cranberry sauce stood where I had placed it, still the only thing I had brought. Tessa walked to the sink and washed her hands. What can I do? She asked. June glanced at me before answering. Fill the water glasses. Okay, no list, no assumption that she would discover the rest. Tessa filled a pitcher and carried it into the dining room. I followed with the cranberry sauce. She stopped beside the table when she saw the cards. For a second, nobody else was in the room. June's place settings were not formal. White plates, green napkins, mismatched water glasses, but each adult's name stood beside a chair. Tessa touched the card bearing hers. Then she looked at mine. Did you know she was doing this? She asked. No. Is it okay if I sit beside you? Your name is already there. I'm asking you. The distinction settled between us. Yes, I said, sit beside me. She nodded. From the kitchen, June shouted, Tessa, are you filling the glasses or reading them? Filling. Tessa picked up the pitcher. June, I called, water isn't supposed to be that wet. There was a pause. What? Nothing. Tessa looked at me, startled. Then she laughed so suddenly that water splashed onto the tablecloth. Great, June called. We've lost her. I took a napkin and blotted the spill. Tessa reached for another. We cleaned it together. The six of us gathered in the living room while Martin carved the turkey. Rob and Dana argued about whether a ceramic rabbit on June's mantel had been there at Christmas. June insisted she had owned it for 15 years. Dana said nobody could own something that ugly for that long without somebody intervening. Tessa sat beside me on the couch, holding a glass of wine in both hands. Her phone vibrated once inside her purse. She did not reach for it. Is that Graham? I asked quietly. Probably. You can answer. I know. Not answering can be a decision too. She gave me a look. You've become exhausting. So, I've heard. She took the phone out and glanced at the screen. Her expression did not change, but she turned it face down on the coffee table. He asked if I came, she said. Did you tell him? Before I left my apartment. What did he say? That he hoped I understood what it meant. And do you? No. She took a sip of wine. He wants it to mean I chose you, she continued. I told him I chose where to eat Thanksgiving dinner. That sounds accurate. He said I'm hiding behind language. You may be. Whose side are you on? Mine. It's much simpler. She smiled without looking at me. I don't want you to think I came because I've decided anything about him, she said. I don't. I still love him. I know I miss our house. I know I hate the apartment refrigerator. I've heard it. It starts humming every night at 2. I think it's trying to contact something. Maybe the dishwasher. There is no dishwasher. Then it's lonely. She rolled the stem of her glass between her fingers. "I'm not ready to go back," she said. "You don't have to explain that to me." "I'm not explaining. I'm practicing saying it without asking permission." I looked at her. "How did it sound?" she asked. "True." From the dining room, June announced that dinner was ready. We walked in together. Tessa reached my chair first. I expected her to sit beside me. Instead, she placed one hand on the back of my chair and pulled it away from the table. The movement was ordinary. A few inches of wood against the rug. It stopped me completely. Tessa looked up. "Mom?" I sat down. She pushed the chair in gently before taking her own place. Nobody applauded. Nobody even seemed to notice. Martin was asking Rob whether he wanted white meat. Dana was moving the butter away from June, who had already dropped a spoon into it. The room continued around us. That made it better. Martin carved one side of the turkey too thick and the other too thin. June forgot the rolls until we were halfway through the first helping. The potatoes were no longer glue, though they had small lumps Martin defended as evidence of authenticity. Tessa placed cranberry sauce on her plate. "I don't actually like cranberry sauce," she said. "I know. Then why have you served it every year?" "Because you take some." "I take some because you make it." We stared at each other. Across the table, Dana said, "This seems bigger than cranberry sauce." "It's not," Tessa and I answered together. Rob asked Martin about the turkey, and conversation moved on. For the first time in a year, I ate a holiday meal while it was hot. When June got up for the rolls, I remained seated. When Martin needed another serving spoon, he found one. Dana spilled wine and cleaned it herself. Nobody suffered from my inaction. Halfway through dinner, Tessa reached for the salt with her left hand and winced. "Shoulder?" I asked. "It still catches sometimes." "You doing the exercises?" "Most days." Most days means no. It means most days. "Do you want the number for that therapist Bev uses?" "You don't even know what kind of therapist Bev uses. She has one for every body part." Tessa laughed. Something eased at the table, not vanished, eased. After we finished, everyone carried plates to the kitchen. Tessa took hers, then paused beside mine. "May I?" "You may." She stacked my plate beneath hers. In the kitchen, June began issuing instructions until Dana placed both hands on her shoulders and turned her toward the living room. "You cooked," Dana said. "Go sit." I hosted. You cooked and hosted. I know where things go. We'll use our imaginations. June looked at me for support. "Bad things happen when people aren't allowed to help," I said. "That sounds directed. It's Thanksgiving. Everything sounds directed." June surrendered and went to sit with Martin. Rob wrapped leftovers. Dana loaded the dishwasher. Tessa and I stood at the sink because the roasting pan would not fit. "I can wash," she said. "I'll dry." "You hate drying." "I hate wet counters." "That is not the same thing." We began anyway. For several minutes, the only sound was water against metal and Dana opening and closing cabinet doors. "Top left," I told her when she searched for the foil. "I found it." "You were looking in the silverware drawer." I was eliminating possibilities. She carried the foil to Rob. Tessa scrubbed the roasting pan, her right arm close to her body. "Give me that," I said. "I can do it. I know. You're hurting." She passed me the sponge without an argument. I took over the pan. She picked up the towel. "Graham came to see you," she said. My hand stopped beneath the water. "When?" "September." "How do you know?" "He told me last week." I rinsed the sponge. I didn't think it was mine to tell. "What did he want?" "For me to convince you to go home." "Did you?" "No." "Why?" "Because you had already gone home." She dried the same plate twice. "He said he apologized to you." "He did." "Was it real?" "Yes." "Then why didn't that fix anything?" "Because the apology was to me. The marriage is with you." She set down the plate. "He thinks you should have told me he came. I thought about it." "Why didn't you?" "I didn't want to make his attempt at honesty into evidence against him. That's unusually generous." "He also annoyed me." "That sounds more familiar." She folded the towel, unfolded it, then draped it over the oven handle. He says you told him I wasn't happy before Thanksgiving. I said you were quiet. Was I? Yes. I thought I was easygoing. You were easy to go around. Her face tightened. I'm not trying to insult you. I know. That is something I'm still learning to say better. She leaned against the counter. Do you regret leaving? She asked. Thanksgiving? Yes. I wiped my hands and looked through the doorway at the dining room. Our cards remained beside the empty plates. Marion, Tessa, cream paper, blue ink. I regret what it cost, I said. That isn't an answer. It is the answer. I wish you had followed me. I wish I had stayed long enough to hear you apologize. I wish Graham had carried in the office chair before I reached the door. I wish your father had been alive because nobody would have tried it with him in the room. Her eyes lowered. But do I regret walking out? I continued. No. Tessa swallowed. If I had stayed, I would have served dinner. I would have smiled so everyone else could stop feeling uncomfortable. By Sunday, I would have cooked again, and you would have learned that loving me meant I would absorb anything. I already thought that. Yes. I'm sorry. I know. No. She lifted her eyes. I'm sorry I used what I knew about you against you. I knew you loved me enough to forgive me, and I used that to make you the easiest person to hurt. The kitchen blurred slightly. I picked up the towel, though my hands were already dry. I forgive you, I said. This time, there was no condition waiting behind the sentence. Tessa covered her mouth. I stepped toward her, and she came into my arms. Her head fit beneath my chin the same way it had when she was young, though everything else had changed. I don't trust everything yet, I whispered. I know. And forgiving is not the same as going back. I know. You're agreeing too much. I'm trying something new. I felt her laugh against my shoulder. Dana came into the kitchen carrying the plastic bakery dome. Sorry to interrupt whatever this is, but we need a knife strong enough to cut Tessa's pie. Tessa pulled away and wiped her eyes. It's pumpkin, not concrete. Dana tapped the crust. It made a small, alarming sound. Debatable. We carried dessert into the dining room. June had made coffee. Martin placed the apple pie near himself and claimed he was protecting it. Tessa cut the pumpkin pie. The first piece came out clean enough to photograph, which seemed to restore her confidence. She set it on my plate. I didn't make it, she said. I'm aware. I didn't even move it to a nicer container. Brave. I brought it exactly as purchased. We all grow at different speeds. She served herself a piece and sat beside me. Dana's apple pie was excellent. Tessa's pumpkin pie looked better than it tasted. The filling was oddly pale and had almost no spice. I took one bite. Beside me, Tessa took hers. Her face went completely still. I looked at her. She swallowed with effort. It's subtle. It tastes like a candle that forgot its scent. She pressed her lips together. I paid $28 for this. You should report it. To whom? The cook. Her eyes widened. For a fraction of a second, the old sentence sat between us. Then Tessa began to laugh. Not politely, not carefully. She bent over her plate, one hand against her stomach, shoulders shaking. I tried to remain serious and failed. June asked what was funny. Tessa shook her head because she could not speak. I laughed until tears ran down my face. Dana tasted the pie and joined us. Martin took a larger bite as if determined to locate the missing flavor. Rob said it was not bad if you thought of it as orange custard. Nobody rescued the dessert. Nobody apologized for it. We ate the good pie instead. Tessa wiped her eyes with her napkin. Maybe I should learn to make one, she said. You could. Would you teach me? The question was asked plainly. No assumption. No task hidden inside it. Ask me again sometime, I said. She nodded. I will. Her place card stood beside her coffee cup. Mine stood beside mine. The food was imperfect, the future uncertain, and my daughter was still sitting next to me when the plates were cleared. This time, that was enough.